Mike. Camera. Action.
Guys, looks like we'll be approaching the wormhole in about 3 hours.
Hey, Coop. Can we stop the spinning?
Why?
Because we're close enough to see it now.
All right.
Thanks. There, that's it. That's the wormhole.
You say it, don't spray it, huh? It's a sphere.
Well, of course it is. What you thought it would just be a hole.
No, it's just that all the illustrations I've ever seen,
The illustrations. I'll show you how it works. So they say you want to go from here to there. But it's too far, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a wormhole bends space like this, so you can take a shortcut through a higher dimension. Okay, so to show that, they've turned three-dimensional space into 2 dimensions, which turns a wormhole into 2 dimensions. A circle. What's a circle in 3 dimensions?
sphere.
Exactly. A spherical hole. But who put it there? Who do we have to thank?
I'm not thanking anybody until we get out of here in one piece, Rom.
All right. Welcome back to Filmography, the show dedicated to watching every credited film from an actor's complete back catalogue from past debut through to present day in chronological order. Each episode I'm joined by an esteemed guest to watch and discuss the next entry from their focused filmography and consider how it ranks amidst their career and whether we can trace any typecasting trends or topic traits or theatrical tics. Today, I'm joined by theatrical podcaster Mike Burton to discuss McConaughey's performance in Christopher Nolan's Interstellar from 2014. We watch, you listen, and hopefully watch along too. Good evening, sir. I'm so happy to be talking to you and to be, the show which sees your big return.
Yes, I've been busy raising a little one. So all fans of the show will know, in November, my firstborn, my daughter Melody, was born. And so I was like, I need a break from podcasting because I need to focus on my real baby, not my theoretical podcasting baby. So yes, this is the first podcast I've recorded since probably October, which is the longest stint I've been without recording a podcast since I started podcasting in 2017. So it's been 9 years almost of podcasting at least once a week for a very, very long time. And this will come out before I've released anything formally on my feeds, but fans of Genuine Chit Chat and Star Wars Chit Chat, there is stuff coming. Okay, I got lots in the bank. I'm just taking my time to edit them and get them all ready and scheduled, and then I'll be back. I just know that once I get back, I want to keep up more of a schedule. But I'm so happy to be able to ease my way back in. With Back to the Filmography, a lovely constant of the last few years of my listening, mainly. I've been loving, obviously, season 1 with Jason Statham, and then season 2 with Matthew McConaughey, the McConaissance. So I've been trying to listen. I think I was completionist on the Statham ones. I've been a bit more blotchy with the McConaughey stuff. I've not listened to them all, I'm afraid, but I have listened to enough, I think, to have a good idea. And I'm hoping that you've got a nice little segment from his autobiography, but I don't know. I don't know if you're going to hold that to your chest, but I hope you do, because whenever you crack that out, it always makes me quite happy, because I like McConaughey, but I'm like, I don't like him enough to read the autobiography, so I just rely on you to give me the information for it.
Totally fair. I mean, sadly, I don't have anything from his autobiography. No, this point of his career seems to be where he's chosen to finish this one off.
Oh, okay.
We're getting part 2 at some point. He does sort of say over the next few, so he talks about Dallas Buyers Club, and then over in quite a lot of depth. Obviously, that's his Oscar win, so that makes sense. And then it's like over the next few years, I did, and then he rattles off a bunch of films, and then he talks about like now it feels like I'm onto the the next stage of my life and let's see what comes. So, yes, I think we'll be getting greener lights or greenest lights or whatever he chooses to call it in a few years' time. We obviously got his poem book recently, which I haven't read yet, but I think I will when I draw to the end of this project.
Yeah, that's not something I'll be interested by. If you throw an occasional poem in to back to filmography, I would love that. But as a reader, no, I'm not that into poetry, to be honest. Even if it is with, I imagine probably listening to it on like an audiobook form with his southern drawl would probably be pretty cool, but not cool enough for me to spend time doing it, I'm afraid.
I nearly got the audiobook a couple of weeks ago, but this is a very personal, and maybe for the same, maybe listeners do, I don't know. But when I feel like I'm getting an audiobook, and particularly if I'm paying for it, I want it to be an investment. So I don't want like a 90-minute, a 3-hour audiobook. Like if I'm paying £8 or whatever, like, I want a 20-hour audiobook. Like I'm getting my money back. This one is obviously a bunch of poems, so it's like just over 3 hours or something. So I was like, nah, I'll wait till I get free credit from Audible, or I see it when I use Libby and I use BorrowBox, which are like free library apps. So when it comes on there, I'll listen to it on there.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I'm listening to an audiobook at the moment. I've been listening to it for ages, called Black and British by David Olusoga, and it's 24 and a half hours long. I'm in the last 8 hours now, and I'm like, soon I'll be able to listen to another audiobook that's like 8 hours or so. But there have been some Star Wars audiobooks that have come out, and they're like shorter ones, and it is like, 3 hours. I'm like, I'm not giving a whole credit for that. I could be listening to a day's worth of historical content instead of 3 hours of something. Like I can pick up that book for a pittance and read it in like an afternoon. I'm not doing that. So I'm on board with you there. It's like going to a buffet and having one plate. You're like, I've paid the buffet price. I go to a carvery, I want double serving. I go to like anything that's help yourself. I need at least 2 plates. I have to. It's just the law. Yeah. So I'm on you. I'm on there with that.
Well, we'll see when we get to the end, because if you'll indulge me, we'll see how we're going and how our energy levels are. I thought, it's nice that you brought that up, because I've got maybe a bit of a different resource I could draw from today. So I'll share that as we go and see if you fancy hearing something from some different authors about Interstellar that includes talking about Matthew McConaughey. But it's a book I've read before, and I thought, as I can't do green lights, maybe this will be a bit fun if I pull from a different source this time.
That's amazing. And so when you did the True Detective pod, because obviously you've recorded that, listeners will already be listening. I won't be listening because I do plan on watching it at some point. I caught bits of it, but I know it's going to be absolutely phenomenal.
It's full spoiler as well, so definitely.
Yeah, it has to be with a show like that, and it's a detective show, so it's like you can't really not talk about the big stuff that happens in it. In that, at the start, do you mention that you've run this course with green light, or is this the reveal that there's not going to be any more?
This is probably it, I think. Yeah, because. Again, he touches upon True Detective a little bit, but wasn't enough for me to draw upon, really. So I think, that kind of green lights, unfortunately, has gone away, despite us only being kind of 2/3 of the way through the journey, which is a shame.
Yeah, well, that's fine. That's all good. Well, I'm glad that the listeners don't have to expect that anymore, but you're gonna have to satiate them somehow. But I know you do a lot of your research, so I'm very, very, very excited though to talk about this. I have many, many opinions on it.
I bet. Yeah, this is one of those ones that seems to provoke opinions, right? I think either super positive or kind of not super negative, but people who like really want to nitpick things in it. It seems to be one of those films that people have lots to say about.
Yeah, I think Nolan does that. I was looking on his IMDb, and this is his 3rd highest IMDb rated film. So number 1 is The Dark Knight at 9.1, which is one of the highest rated films of all time. And it's not a controversial opinion for a white millennial to say this, a white male millennial to say this. The Dark Knight is one of the best films ever made. And I give a shit who if anyone is a contrarian goes, no, it's not. I don't care about your opinion on it. It is, empirically, by any measure. If you're not a fan of it, that's okay. His second, though, is Inception, and I'm not the biggest fan of Inception. Really? I think it's good, but I've only watched it once. And I know there's certain Nolan films which are like, first time's a good watch for like a shock. The second time's when you really get in the reads. I mean, I've watched Dark Knight countless times, but I was the generation for the edgier dark, the edgier Batman. But Inception's 8.8, which surprises me because most people I know who've seen it go, yeah, it's a really good movie. It's not 10 out of 10. It's probably 8 out of 10. So the fact it's one of the highest rated films on IMDb surprises me. And then this is 8.7, which from IMDb terms, anything over an 8 is really high because the majority of films sit between like high 6 and 7, like 7 point whatever. So this is his third highest watch, highest rated. I know certain people, I mean, my lovely wife Megan, who I love dearly, does not like this film. She hates it. And people like her, I understand why someone wouldn't like it. I think they're wrong. I know it's subjective. I am being a bit glib and flippant. If any of your listeners are not used to me, I'm not. When I'm saying you're objectively wrong about a film, I am kind of doing it tongue in cheek, but it is kind of my opinion. But my opinion is subjective, so it's that double layer. But it is. She has said herself. This is not me saying it about her. She said, "I just don't think I'm smart enough to comprehend this film," and I'm like, "You are." Like the ending is just. She goes, I don't want you to explain it to me. I didn't get it. I don't need to get it. I can just move on with my life and not get it. And I'm like, but it's not that complicated. She said, no, I don't need to know. And I wonder if there are certain people who just the ending is a bit, we won't get into it yet because I imagine it'll be a major point of the conversation a bit later, but like the ending is quite, it's theory. A lot of Nolan stuff is highbrow science concept theory stuff. And it's kind of like either you get it or you don't. And if you don't get it, you have to kind of look into it. And that's why I'm kind of abstaining from Tenet, because it's the one film everyone goes, yeah, you need 2 or 3 watches. I'm like, I don't need that to vaguely get it. I want one watch to like it or love it and more watches to enjoy it more. I don't need 3 to understand it. Like, have you seen Tenet? And what do you think of Nolan in general?
I've seen it once, and Tenet feels like the one where it's got away from a little bit. This film plays with a lot of the things that we now expect from every Nolan movie, really, even to the extent of like certain lines of dialogue are a little bit hard to hear, and that's deliberate. Well, I mean, Tenet, you can hardly hear a fucking word anyone's saying. I think Tenet is that one. It's almost like the pinnacle of where he was going to. Like Inception did it, Interstellar did it, even Dunkirk did it. You know, with Memento
started with. Well, it's almost it kind of links back. I know Memento, the dialogue's easy to hear, but Memento is a bit mind bendy, but it's like. Yeah. Easy to like everyone I know who's seen Memento, everyone gets it. It really what's the term? It really shows you like when you get to that point where the twist happens. It's like or not the twist, but the reveal, and you kind of understand what the hell's going on. Everyone I know, including Megan who saw it, goes, "Oh, I get it. That's really good, really clever, very clear." And I think as Nolan's gone on post Dark Knight, almost each movie he's become more and more subtle with it, and he's kind of like a little bit more. And I think Tenet, he was like, "Oh god, maybe I wasn't obvious enough." And then he made Oppenheimer, which is it's like an obvious biopic. It's very clever and very brilliantly made, and I love it. But there's not really much hiding away that you have to figure out with Oppenheimer. It's quite to the point. So maybe that was it. He's just getting a bit. I think Tenet was a bit too clever. I've not seen it. I just know a lot about it. But sometimes with someone who's clearly as intelligent as Nolan, he's kind of like, "Oh yeah, I'm getting so weird," and he's like, "I get it." So and you see the whiteboards of him figuring stuff out, and I'm like, "I think you've gone a bit too far up your own bum for this one. Maybe you need to rein it in a bit." Yeah, maybe.
I think it's the story as well. I think maybe as you mentioned, Inception, you didn't quite connect with on that level. I think the core of the story of Inception is the father trying to get back to his kids, much like Interstellar. To be fair. Really pulls you through, even if you are finding it a bit challenging or you're not quite understanding everything that's happening, and it's fair for everyone to be feeling that way. Tenet, I'm just not as bought into what the arc of the story is. I don't care very much. I thought The Creator, the Gareth Edwards movie,
yes, it's on my list. I haven't watched it yet, but I've heard it's very good.
Better version of that. It's a very different story, but I felt like that is a better version of that kind of sci-fi futuristic but set in a relatable world. I thought that did a better job of it than Tenet did, actually.
It's weird with this film, Interstellar, because in a lot of ways it is the peak of both McConaughey and Nolan's career. I think, I mean, technically one would say, well, what about Oppenheimer? He won the Oscar for that. Okay, yeah, I know, and Barbenheimer is a cultural phenomenon that we're probably never going to get again, or won't for another decade, and it will come out of nowhere. But like Oppenheimer definitely was a mainstream hit, but I think Interstellar, it did something for movies that really didn't change the game, but did stuff that other movies have not done before or since. It really, there's so many sci-fi movies that are like, it's obviously Event Horizon, I think, was one of the first ones which had the whole fold the paper, pen through it idea, which happens in this. But like Interstellar is one of the first movies that's come out that scientific people were like, this is like 99% actually scientifically accurate, and it's done in a way you can actually comprehend of it. And there's very little in this film, apart from that end, where you go, this is beyond me. There's a few sci-fi films you watch and you're like, is this real science or is this just gobbledygook to finagle the plot stuff? And this is one of those films where I was like, no, it doesn't. And you do understand every part of it. The time stuff, no one I know who's seen it goes, I didn't get the time stuff, which you'd think that's the complicated stuff, but it's not. So I think that this is I'm so happy I got to talk about this film, even though skirting around the edges, like in a horizon on a black hole, it's like, because for McConaughey, this is, I think, the first, Dallas Buyers Club, I guess, was, but like, this is really peak McConaughey because he's unequivocally the main character. There's some brilliant cast around him, but there's almost no scenes where it's not just him on screen. From the halfway point, it turns and you get a little bit more of Murph on Earth. But, I didn't mean to do that. Outside of those bits, every single scene is him and someone else.
Yeah.
Or someone and he's off camera talking. Like, so it's probably the only McConaughey film I've seen where it's McConaughey featuring everyone else. He's top billing without a doubt. Whereas I think Dallas Buyers Club, which I've ashamedly not seen, I know that was more of an ensemble. Am I correct in understanding that? There's a lot more people in it.
I mean, I think, when you've got Jared Leto as your co-star, then obviously that is going to come with a certain weight of expectation, whether that's, at that point in his career, he wasn't quite the Jared Leto that we have now, which everyone seems to hate on. He was a bit more accepted. I
think it's one of his only 3 good roles. I think I understand. It's Requiem for a Dream, that, and there's like 1 or 2 others. But him being a kind of piece of shit.
No big spoilers for that episode for when you listen to it. But I had Angry Andy on with me, and he was not just accepting of Jared Leto in that movie. He was like celebratory of that.
I've heard he's great in it. It's just
fantastic.
And when he's good, he is great. That's how he keeps getting these roles. But there's just so many roles, and it's like he's not right for it, and he does suck as a person. So is it really worth it? But I have heard everyone I know who's seen him in that goes, that's the coattails of why he's in everything at the moment, because he was so good in that people are like, no, but it's Jared Leto from Requiem for a Dream and Dallas Buyers Club. And it's like, but maybe those were outliers, maybe not, but.
No, it's interesting what you say. This is I think it's a pivotal movie in the genre, I think. We know your love and you know my love for Star Wars, and we know how important and pivotal that is. This is kind of an anti-Star Wars, and I don't mean that in a positive or a negative way. I think there's room for both those things. But you look at kind of the way that the genre not changed, but the way that it realised it could appeal to people and different people in different ways, and what came after this, it's clear this had a seismic impact. Films like Arrival, you wouldn't have got without this.
Oh, I love that film.
The Martian, you wouldn't have got without this.
Love it.
Project Hail Mary is about to come out, right? I mean, same right for The Martian, to be fair, but you definitely, I read the book of that recently in prep to go and see the movie. It's very clear Andy Weir is a big fan of Interstellar, and Chris Nolan and Kip Thorne and the things they're doing with this movie. So I think there's probably a dozen others that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head that you might be able to name, and people that are listening.
I will. I've got a little note here actually about elevated sci-fi. Okay, so Star Wars technically is sci-fi, but it's not. It's space fantasy. That's how because it's really just it's so much more about the fantasy element. That's why all the hand wavy and the wizards and the science stuff, parsecs, etc. don't make sense, and that's fine. There's a million species that all do weird, wonderful stuff, but they all seem to be humanoid. It doesn't make any sense. It's fantasy. This film is grounded in reality. Now, I think there's a trilogy of the best sci-fi movies ever made. Okay, and I've not seen 2001: A Space Odyssey, but I've heard it's boring as shit. But I'm going to watch it at some point. But I know the first 40 minutes is just nothing for ages. And there's a few others. But in my opinion, from what I've seen, I think the 3 best sci-fi movies ever are Interstellar, Moon, and Ex Machina. They're 3 of my favourite movies of all time, and I think they're 3 of the best. They're all, for me, 10 out of 10 movies. I can understand if people rate them 9 out of 10, even at 8. I think if you're giving any of these movies less than an 8, you don't understand them. I think Deus Ex Machina, Ex Machina is objectively like a perfect movie, really. But I keep saying objectively again. I'm being facetious. It is subjective. But because each of those movies tackles a different major part of sci-fi in a very, very isolated but direct way. They don't get bogged down by loads of other crap. It's the concept. I can't Moon is very interesting, but I don't want to say about Moon because there's a thing that happens in it, which is why it's so brilliant. But if you know that going in, you didn't already know, it can ruin the film. So watch Moon, anyone listening, because it's Sam Rockwell, in my opinion, his best performance ever. And it's just him, the whole movie. And he is phenomenal in that film. And that's got a really cool concept in it. And then Ex Machina, there's like 4 people in it. And that is just such a concentrated, undiluted, focused look on AI before the AI boom really started to happen.
Yeah.
And it does it in such a brilliant way, and it's so succinct, and there's no wasted time. And that's how I feel about Moon as well. It's a shorter film, very succinct, brilliant in so many ways, unexpected in some. And then Interstellar is the grand, epic, massive film, but it is still a very small story at its heart.
It's a personal story, yeah.
Exactly. It's McConaughey, his character's story. It's his story. And yeah, there's high concept sci-fi stuff around it, but really you think of the cast in this, you go, oh yeah, that person's in it, and Michael Caine pops up, but actually most people in this only have like 5 or 10 minutes of screen time and not that much actual dialogue, bar maybe a monologue, except Matthew McConaughey. And in Moon, it's just Sam Rockwell, and then in Ex Machina, it's really Oscar Isaac and Domhnall Gleeson. The actress who plays the AI, I can't remember what her name is.
Alicia Vikander.
There you go. She's fantastic as well. And she is integral to it, but it is much more about Domhnall Gleeson and Oscar Isaac. But still, it's mainly those 3. And I think that when you get certain other sci-fi movies, including Star Wars, it's almost like you've got so many people all kind of vying for screen time. It's go, oh, my favourite character is this or that. You don't get that in those 3. Now, the honourable mention is, The Martian is excellent as well. Apollo 13 is phenomenal. Like, there are other movies that are sci-fi epics that I think do it really well, but personally, I think Interstellar, Moon, and Ex Machina are just of what they set out to achieve. Whether or not they're your favourite film or not, that's fine. But what the initial note on a napkin was to the finished product, I don't think you could do better than that. And I think we're in the renaissance of sci-fi. We had it in the 70s and 80s and kind of then the 90s. Every decade or 2, you get a leap up in technology and what sci-fi can show on screen. And I think Interstellar, Moon, and Ex Machina in very different ways really utilize the modern technology to tell the story they need to without getting bogged down by the George Lucas effect of let's waste loads of time having these fancy things that we're not quite ready for, which don't serve the plot. These are very focused. So that's why, spoiler alert, this is one of my favourite films of all time, which is why I want to talk about it. So,
no, but that's what we need. We need somebody passionate about this one. I think, I do really like it. It's not my favourite Nolan. It's not my favourite McConaughey. But I think it's a very strong movie. I left a really simple letterboxd review when I finished watching this the other day. I just wrote 90%. Because it's a quote which is used in the movie over and over. And that's how I feel about this movie. I feel like it's 90% of being exactly what it wants to be. 90% of being like a brilliant movie of like, there's just a couple of things which hold it back for me as we'll talk about when we go.
Oh yeah, it's not perfect. I think it's perfect in certain ways. There's a big bugbear I do have with the movie, even though I've been talking about how much I love it. So even though I'm saying how much I love this movie, it's not perfect, to clarify.
Oh yeah,
so,
which, as we know, even the things we love, nothing is perfect, is it?
No.
Other than Die Hard.
And Ex Machina. If you're going to say Die Hard, I'll say Ex Machina.
But you spoke at the start about, like, is this the peak of Nolan? Perhaps. That's a really interesting point. I wonder what he would consider his peak. I'd like to hear him talk about that. It's certainly, if not the peak of the McConaughey performance, I guess many people might argue that's Dallas Buyers Club because he got the Oscar. I would argue it's actually True Detective. And as Matt and I talk about, I won't spoil anything for you. The fact that he has 8 episodes to create a character is obviously a luxury films don't afford him. So I think that's his best ever performance. But this is definitely the final kind of, I don't want to say nail in the coffin because that sounds terrible, but like this is the final top performance from him really that we get. So we get a bit more of a slide again. And, he still makes good movies and he's still good in most, if not all these movies. But, this run he's just been on, Dallas Buyers Club, Wolf of Wall Street, True Detective, Interstellar. I mean, that is ridiculous by anybody's standards. This is kind of the end of the top for him, really. This is the pinnacle in that way of like, he'll never get a run like that again.
Yeah, I think if you did the Mount Rushmore of McConaughey, you'd put those 4 up there. Wolf of Wall Street is the biggest impact for the smallest role.
Yeah,
True Detective is the most flushed out character development and like branch of what he can do as an actor with anyone else. Because I've seen the odd episode of that because my brother was watching it, so I'd caught bits. I think I went over there years ago, and they're like, "We're just at the end of this episode of True Detective. Just keep watching." And I remember seeing McConaughey. I think he's smoking at one point and like staring into the distance, and I was like, what, Matthew McConaughey. He's actually a really good actor. It was that kind of, I think that it was around the turning point. And then obviously Interstellar was him main man starring role, and Dallas Buyers Club was, along with Leto and some other people, really that kind of, Dallas Buyers Club and True Detective and Wolf of Wall Street were like, he could really act. And then Interstellar was like, because of its mainstream hit, it was so like undeniable. Like Wolf of Wall Street was a mainstream hit, but he was a side character.
Yeah.
Whereas, this was really all of them bolstering into this
movie.
Yeah. It's the Rushmore. I think those 4 things. Yeah. I think if you were said to someone, what 4 or 5 things do you need to watch to truly understand McConaughey as an actor? I know that's kind of what you're doing in this whole podcast, and some would argue, in the early days you need to know what he was doing to kind of see where he goes. But if you want to be like, where's peak McConaughey to show his true acting chops? Those are the 4 things you'd probably show them.
No, I think that's totally fair. You might pick How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days to get one of the rom-coms in there, but they are, this era of his career is quite astonishing, really, what he managed to do. You did mention the early part, though. That's a nice segue, isn't it? Let's do that, because it's been ages since I had you on, not just because of life, but because of you podcasting, me podcasting, and not finding the right movie to talk about together. As we discussed just before we start recording, Glory Days, ironic title, was the last movie we did. And we were talking about your own journey through the reconnaissance and how many movies you've seen. And you said, we thought we'd talk about that here in terms of your own smattering of kind of McConaughey's that you've seen. Yeah,
so before guesting on your show and things like that, I'd seen, I think, 7 films, and then because of it, I watched 1 or 2 extras. So I've seen Glory Days, obviously, and then I watched How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days because of the pod, because I was on there with Megan a while ago. And then the other ones I've seen of him, I hadn't really seen as much McConaughey. So I saw Tropic Thunder, which I love. I loved that pod you guys did, by the way. I love that movie. I think it's the last controversial comedy that's good, that's going to be out for many years. I imagine 10, 20 years' time, there's going to be a renaissance of controversial comedy films again that aren't just really horrible people making horrible stuff to kind of try and be anti-woke, like actually just good comedy that's a bit edgy. Not in the same way as Downey doing blackface. As you guys said, you couldn't do that 5 years later. It was like so close to the grain. But I love that film. It's not perfect. There's a lot of crap to it. But even from the start, when you get those movie commercials, I'm like, I'm in. Tropic Thunder, Glory Days, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, Wolf of Wall Street, we said, Deadpool 3, I always forget he's even in that, so that's kind of a cheap. This, I've seen The Dark Tower, weirdly. A friend of mine wanted to go see it at the cinema because they read the book. I didn't hate The Dark Tower. I know a lot of people are slating it, and I don't think you've watched it yet. I was like, it's fine. Idris Elba is great. McConaughey is great. The film's a film. I don't think it's bad. I just think it's a film. It's just one of those, like, I don't want to rewatch it, but I was somewhat entertained. But I've not read the book, so I don't know anything about that. The Gentleman, which I loved that. I think it's one of Guy Ritchie's best movies. I was so surprised. I watched it on a whim on Netflix. I was like, I like Guy Ritchie. I did. I liked some of his stuff, but I don't know. It's got McConaughey in it. I'll give it a go. And I was like, this is so good. What the hell? Amazing. And Kubo and the Two-String, which I absolutely adore. I think that and Coraline are probably my 2 favourite stop motion movies. I love Fantastic Mr. Fox and I adore Isle of Dogs as well, both Wes Anderson movies. I know Wes Anderson's quite controversial in the sense that a lot of people, he's very Marmite. A lot of people hate him. But Kubo, I think, has so much heart, and Coraline is such a brilliant entry-level horror for kids. People talk about Nightmare Before Christmas, and it's a good movie. It's more of a vibe than a movie because the plot is atrocious and the songs are pretty good, but it's got no real plot, whereas Kubo is like so much heart, so brilliant, and Coraline is so horror, and obviously the director of Nightmare did Coraline, Henry Selick, I think. But yeah, that's my McConaughey experience, where this is the only film really apart from How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, where he's actually the lead of his stuff. And I have been meaning to watch, I think Mud, you guys said was really good. And another podcast I listened to, a lot of people say that's one of the best films McConaughey has been in. And then obviously True Detective is a big one as well. And Dallas Buyers Club. So I've seen a few. I wouldn't have watched Glory Days had we not done the pod. No. All I can think of when I think of Glory Days is Sam Rockwell, really young, and Ben Affleck. I know when we talk about McConaughey, I remember him being the used car salesman. But like that film, it feels like I watched it so long ago.
I bet. I mean, you've seen a fifth of his filmography, to be fair. That's pretty impressive. You know, that's not one that you've seen, and you've seen a nice broad range. You've seen really early stuff. You've seen the kind of the peak of the rom-com era. You've seen, you know, what we're talking about here has been kind of the pinnacle of the reconnaissance era. So you've dipped in and out of the right places. I've not seen Kubo. I've been waiting, and yeah,
so excited. That's why I didn't say anything about it. I was like, I don't want to spoil it, but
that's the reaction I get from everybody when I say I haven't seen it. And it's one of those ones which has been on my watch list for so long, but then as soon as I started doing this, and I thought, well, I'll just save it then. I'll save it, and I'll save it, and I'll save it, and it'll be one I can watch with the boys, I think, and it'll be a really nice experience.
It's a really, when Melody grows up, it's on my list of films. Like, I've got it on Blu-ray right there, and I'm like, as soon as I saw it, I was like, I need to own this. I need to. And my brother adores stop motion stuff, so anytime like a new stop motion movie comes out, he always watches it, and he showed me Kubo years ago when it came out. And I watched it, and again, I won't say anything about it, but I finished it. I was like, that was just so excellent and visually a feast and so much heart, and I love it. And I'm truly indoctrinated in Kubo. I'm like, anytime I meet someone and they go, I like stop motion, or I like those kind of the films that you can show kids that aren't kids' films, which I think is one of the most underrated genres out there. I love that genre of movies, not just, you know, I hate Shrek, but like not just like Shrek or like a film that's got innuendo in it, but like an actual adult. I think Studio Ghibli is probably the sweet spot of that, where really a lot of Ghibli films are actually really mature and quite intense, especially like Princess Mononoke and things. But Spirited Away is such a phenomenal movie, and it is quite dark, but it's not a barrier for kids. And I think Kubo's in that. I think Coraline's in that. And I love the accessible, mature movie. I think that's how I describe Kubo. And I won't say
that's
more.
Fascinating. That's kind of, you know, what another lovely segue. Kind of, Nolan's intention here was that he wanted this to be a family experience. He talks about, I mean, we'll get into it. He talks about, Spielberg being a big influence on this movie, which makes sense, seeing as it was originally offered to Spielberg to direct. But he wanted a Close Encounters, definitely an influence, a Jaws, where it's really anyone can watch this, but it's going to be a bit edgy. I mean, that word's come to mean something different in recent years, but I know what he means. You know, a decade ago when he says edgy, he means this will push you out of your comfort zone a little bit. You can watch it with your kids and talk to them about like space and exploration and the environment and potential issues that are going on Earth and conflict and
death and family, really.
Yeah. Man's inhumanity to man, which we definitely want to be talking about with Man on Man Planet when Manning and Manning. Yeah, I know what he means. Like, I could easily sit down and watch this with my eldest for sure. I think it's a long movie to watch with an early teenager, but there'd be so much he'd probably want to talk about come the end of it. It does hit that target that he's aiming for, I think, really well.
Yeah, it's accessible but highbrow or elevated sci-fi. And I know Dan, Spider Dam, one of his least favorite things is to say about certain horror films is elevated horror, because it kind of gatekeeps horror a little bit. So I try not to say elevated sci-fi because
things that are not considered elevated. Yeah,
exactly. And then highbrow makes that even worse. But it's more a high concept is probably where I'd lean on, which is what I think Moon and Ex Machina also have, where it's high concept because on paper, when you hear what is the premise of Interstellar, you go, well, I can't really tell you just one sentence. I have to kind of add a bit of context. So it's maybe a paragraph in a way, but actually each bullet point of when putting this film together, it just hits so well. And it's really, I'm so glad Nolan didn't do this, but this feels like a studio would be strangling someone to make a miniseries out of. And I think it would work, but I think you wouldn't get the widespread appeal. And I think because we've been in the age of the age of the series, and Disney and COVID are to blame for this as well, and they just made every Marvel thing. They're like, this can't make a movie, let's make it a series, and I think it's diminishing returns in a lot of ways. Because I can't invest in a billion series, I haven't got the fucking time. But also, I love a movie. I like to sit down, and when I get back up, I've seen a whole complete story, a full stop. Not this is a 3-month investment where I watch drips and drabs of it over time. There are certain things that are great for that. Buffy is amazing for that, but when it comes to something like this, I think although it is nearly 3 hours, 2 hours 50 or 45 excluding credits, it's like, I think it needed to be that. And I think it is so much to it. There's so much meat on it, but I think that there's not much you could cut, which is quite rare.
Yeah.
It's very, very rare that I think a film should ever be longer than 2 hours 20. Apart from the Lord of the Rings movies, I think, probably Wolf of Wall Street, I can't think of a movie that's longer than 2.5 hours that I think is worth that length. Pretty much every other film that's that long, I'm like, it's too much, it's bloated, there's whole subplots and scenes you should cut out, etc. This doesn't have that. I'm sure you could shave a bit, but apart from a little bit here and there I didn't like as much, and a bit certain dialogue that I think's corny and doesn't fit very well, aside from that, I don't think there's bigger chunks you could take out of this movie, which is commendable, even for Nolan standards, because Nolan does like a long film.
No, I agree. It's an interesting thought, isn't it? I'm pretty sure I remember when I was talking to Paul about Contacts, but I couldn't get that sentence out. We were talking about that. That might work as if they redid that, that'd be quite a good little, 3-episode miniseries. Yeah, it's an interesting idea, isn't it? Because there are moments in this movie where I feel like I do want to sit with it a bit longer. I would have liked to have been on Man's Planet a bit longer before things escalate, I think. And I always feel the section, I know we're sort of getting into in-depth bits now, which we've been talking more broadly, like the section on Miller's Planet. That's the only time I feel in this movie where I'm not confused about the time dilation and stuff. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, because there's some cool moments on with what he does with the soundtrack and some key choices he does there to get that across to the audience. But when they go back up and it's like, we've been gone for 23 years, I think because of the amount of time it feels like they've been there within the movie, I don't think they've sold that they were there for a couple of hours quite well enough for me.
I agree. I felt that every time I watch it.
They fly down, it feels like they've been there for 5 minutes. There's a big wave. They just about get away and then they fly off again. I'm like, oh, that's not 2 hours worth of screen time. Whereas it does feel like on Man's Planet, they've been there for quite a while. I just would like to sit because I love that build up to the kind of reveal in the moment. I think I would have loved to have sat with that for even a bit longer, really.
I do agree. This is one of the rare films where I go, actually, if there was a director's cut, and because I think I've got the Blu-ray, I think there are a couple of deleted scenes. I never ever watch deleted scenes on stuff because if someone said to me, look, there's a deleted scene you should watch, there's 1 or 2 Star Wars that I've watched, but I've not even watched all the deleted scenes of Star Wars because either they're not canon or mainly the thing I hate about it is you go, okay, you just watched the whole movie, right? Here's like 30 seconds completely out of context in the middle. And I'm like, look, manufacturers of Blu-rays and DVDs, even though everyone's trying to step away from that because they make way more money just making you borrow it all the time, and then they can tweak shit and all that kind of stuff and all the licensing blare, and people are staring away from physical media, and people who do that, fuck off, we want physical media. But like, why there's not an option to just like with Aliens, the director's cut, which is the phenomenal movie, why you can't just go, right, can I just, especially when it's on the same disc, can I just click a button and just go, can I watch this with deleted scenes? I don't care if the CG is a bit fucked. I don't care if the colour grading isn't perfect or the audio is a bit off. I want to be able to watch movies with deleted scenes, especially movies I've seen a couple times. I want to be able to watch it and go, I want to see this deleted scene in context to see if it works better. And this is one of the few films I'd say where I would happily, if Nolan said, look, there's a 3 hour, 15-minute cut of Interstellar, I go, you know what? I'm game for that. I think if it was up to 4 hours, I'd give it a watch, but that would probably be a bit much. But I think you could do it because I do think there are points in this movie that feel like a whistle stop a little bit. And it feels like, considering how slow the start is, and rightly so, I think, and considering how when you get to about 2/3 of the movie, things move quite quickly.
Yeah.
It is a bit odd because you're just like, I remember when this, he goes to the weird bit we'll talk about near the end with the future humans or whatever. And I'm like, oh, there's still quite a bit of film left, but it's only like 5 minutes from the end, if that. And it's literally just him, but it's not. It's like, he talks to Merv, and I'm like, oh, we're at the end. And I said, oh, no. And then he's working on TARS for a bit and doing this. And I'm like, wait, what? And then it's this thing. And then it just ends. And you're like, the last 15 minutes, I'm like, it feels like he wanted to make it longer. And the studio was like, dude, we've given you 2 hours 50. You can't have 3 hours of this. You can't.
Yeah. Well, it's about getting showtimes in at the cinema, isn't it? At that point.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I do feel that. I think this does suffer a little bit from actually, it could have had some
a little bit of pacing. It feels a little bit off at times. I agree with you. I think you're right. I think we need to sit at the start. I've got no issues with that at all. I quite like the amount of time we spend on the planet because it's so pivotal to the overarching story and what matters to him. Yeah, I agree. It's sort of from man's, and I like all the stuff on Man's Planet, but like I said, I want to sit there a bit longer, but then sort of from leaving there, it's like bang, this, bang, that, bang, this, bang, that. I'm like, whoa, it's the end of the film. I totally agree with you. Yeah.
I will say, I was going to say with this movie, it's like, I think vaguely, not to steer your podcast, we should probably vaguely go chronologically because we're going to dart everywhere. But I do want to say the sound design of this movie is arguably the best of any movie ever. And actually, I did look up quite a few things on this film. And it was saying that Nolan's involvement, when he got involved, he specifically made an effort to say, we need the sound design to be, I mean, it's IMAX stuff. And I know Nolan's a big proponent of cinema, which I'm grateful for because I love the cinema and IMAX stuff. But like he specifically made an effort with the sound designer and composers to be like, the sound is as important to this movie as the visuals are. And I think when I've watched it in the past, I did see this in the cinema and I remember it blew me away in so many ways. And then this is my third watch, I think, of the movie because I watched the second time and I showed Megan and then obviously I watched it again this time. But this time when I watched it, I got to experience it just myself and I didn't have to worry, is Megan enjoying it or do I need to explain things to her? I could just really soak it in. And because I was taking notes at things and I could just pause if I wanted, really processing that sound. This is definitely if not the best, in the top 5 of best sound designs of ever any films. And there are those little bits that we kind of spoke about at the start, which is there's a bit of dialogue where you can't quite hear because of the sound or this, that. But I watched this film with subtitles this time anyway, because I was like, seen it a few times. I don't need the dramatic tension of dialogue. I just want to know everything that's said without missing things. But I just think the combination of music and the lack of music, that's the beauty of this film, I think, is the soundtrack's amazing, but it is there's so few films really take that step to go, let's not have any sound or not have any music in this part. Let's breathe with it. Let's have a moment with it. And I think the music helps take the edge off that pacing issue towards the end. But I also think in some of the bigger moments, the music of it and the lack thereof at points is just incredible.
Yeah, I watched quite a few of, again, I'm not a big watcher of like behind the scenes and all that kind of stuff. I do some of them now because I do them in prep for this, but I watched a whole kind of like the science of Interstellar, which was on the Blu-ray disc, and then I thought it had all these, like, how did they make the spacesuits? So I skipped over some of them, but I did want to listen to one about sound, and it is a really key part of this movie, obviously, and as you said, like Nolan had his hands on it from the start. Like he gave Hans Zimmer like a treatment and said like, what would you write for this? And he didn't tell him it was a sci-fi movie, didn't tell him it was going to space. It was like the story of a man, and I think at that point it was a son, like the man and his son and all this. And Hans Zimmer pretty much came up with the main theme that we've got. And then he started kind of giving him more and more information. And then the score, as we want to call it, grew out from there. And then they found this organist in the UK who does all the really cool music for the film. The music, I agree, is amazing. It really stays with you. We bought a family keyboard for Christmas, actually, so we can all play and tinker around and have fun. Emma's been playing the Interstellar theme quite a lot on there, so we've been living in the world of Interstellar quite a bit since Christmas, actually. But there's a couple of really key choices in this, I think, sound design wise, which are just, and let's use the phrase, Mike, let's really piss Dan off. Elevated. The elevated moments of cinema. I love the moment when he drives away from the farm when Coop leaves, and him and Murph have had this beautiful conversation, and she just can't in her youth, understandably so, can't bring herself to say goodbye in a way that he wants her to. So he leaves because he has to. The mission's going to go. And as he drives off, you get like almost like archaic sounding, like scratchy, maybe like a phonogram or something, like some sort of scratchy sound of like a shuttle launch as his car drives.
The analog.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, with that beautiful shot of like the camera pinned to the back of his Jeep as he drives away, the dust all billowing out and the farm in the background. And you get that rocket launch. It's what I talk to my students about when I'm teaching them about contrapuntal, like the image doesn't match the sound, but it's so perfect there. Like you just really understand that what Nolan is trying to say in that moment is so moving and so perfectly judged, I think. That's the first one.
I think, agreed, it's one of those things, the editing of this film is amazing, and I haven't written down the editor, but I do, and whoever they are, they did a phenomenal job, but I know that Nolan is so involved with this kind of thing. He's one of those directors, I'm sure he seems like a lovely guy, but I'm sure he'd be a pain in the ass to work with because he's such a perfectionist. And there's quite a few of them.
That's what his wife says about him, who produces all his movies, yeah.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's like we're both big fans of Fincher, but I know he's a fucking nightmare for actors. And I know that like James Cameron is a visionary and changed cinema forever, but he's a prick. But he knows he's a prick, but he is unbearable to work with. And also, not to get into people's dirty laundry, but he's had like 4 wives or something. And, you know, Dan and I spoke to Gail Ann Hurd at Food and World Film Festival last year. She has nothing but nice things to say about him. But when you go into interviews of it, they go, there's a reason he has had so many wives, because he's such a prick sometimes. But he is a visionary. And I'm not saying you can be an asshole if you're a genius or whatever. That's not fair. But there are certain directors, and you're like, if you didn't have a James Cameron, you didn't have a Nolan, you didn't have a Fincher being as anal and specific and involved in fucking everything. I mean, even is it Spielberg was involved so much in no, not Spielberg, Tim Burton with Nightmare Before Christmas. Like it says Henry Selick directed it, but realistically Tim Burton just really kind of took over. And I'm not saying that made it worth it, but there are certain movies and you go, the involvement of that probably did kind of make the movie that way. But I think Nolan in this film is like, he knew what he was doing. He really had a good idea. And that's when I say like the final product is so well. And he let Hans Zimmer do what Hans Zimmer does best. And he's a frequent collaborator of Nolan's. Yeah. And I'll say that there's a moment, I think it's nearer the start, where I love the movie Watchmen. And that's probably the only other movie I can think of that's really long that I adore. Show Megan that. She fucking hated it, which a lot of people hate that movie. I unashamedly love it. It's one of my favourites ever. And I got the Blu-ray of there's Watchmen, then there's the extended Watchmen, then there's the director's cut of Watchmen. I've got the director's cut. I made her watch that. It's like 3.5 hours long. She was not a fan. None of my friends who aren't podcasting friends, none of them like Watchmen. They all think I'm mad. I love it. In that, there's a bit when Dr. Manhattan first becomes Dr. Manhattan in a way, and he's there on Mars, he's thinking to himself, and it's that and he's like thinking about his life and like his place in the universe. And that is one of my favourite scenes because of the music in that film. That whenever I hear that kind of, you know, peak, trough, but so gentle, almost like a xylophone kind of thing, but not quite, and a spacey feel to it. There were parts in this film, there's one part in particular that really felt like that. And that film was scored by Tyler Bates, who did the John Wick movies, which I also fucking love those movies. Again, I keep saying I don't like long movies. I think John Wick Chapter 4 is my favourite John Wick movie. I'm a hypocrite, I'm sorry. But yeah, I think there are parts of this movie where the music really has its own personality almost, you know. And I think sci-fi is so important for that, because as a common thing we say and Tony says is, although Star Wars isn't technically sci-fi really, Star Wars would not be Star Wars without John Williams' score. It empirically would have fallen flat. It does not work without the music. It does not. And Spielberg, really, he knows. I know Spielberg was kind of a shadow producer of Star Wars. He just kind of helped George with a few bits and pieces. But Jaws, E.T., Indiana Jones, all of them have their merits as movies, and Superman, but they only work. They got beyond the confines of a normal movie. They became a true blockbuster because of the music. And I think that this movie, although it doesn't have like the theme song is amazing, but it's not the kind of theme you could just play to anyone in the street and they go Interstellar. It's not, you know, the Indiana Jones or Jurassic Park or anything like that, but it's so core to the identity of this movie that I just can't understate. I can't overstate how important it is. And on this watch, I really kept an ear out for it, and I was just blown away.
No, I completely agree with everything you're saying. I just thought, I'll look at it whilst you're talking. Lee Smith is the editor. He's done a lot of Nolan stuff, actually. Batman Begins, The Prestige, Inception.
I love The Prestige.
Did all the Batmans with him. He's dipped in and out of other people's work as well. Did Spectre. He works with Sam Mendes as well. So, yeah, he's a very successful editor in his own right. He did Better Man, the Robbie Williams movie recently.
I mean to watch that because apparently it's really good.
Really likes it and really well edited. Amazingly edited, actually, considering it's basically, a 2-hour-long music video. That's a lot of editing you've got to do there, right? No, I agree. Yeah. And the music is really stunning. And as you mentioned, I think that it's worth talking about here, kind of the absence of sound at points as well. That idea of when we cut out into space and we have that absolute silence is really telling. I mean, I love Gravity. Again, I know that's another film which is a little bit, like some people, a little bit marmite-y, a little bit, there's discourse about it, whether it's good or not, and then the merits of Gravity as a movie. I think it's brilliant. But that definitely uses music to tell you how to feel and does break the rule of kind of, no sound in space. Because it has a score during some of those moments. Whereas I think here, Interstellar really goes to great pains, which makes sense considering the rules that were laid out by Kip Thorne, of making sure that when we cut out to the space scenes, it really is just that space, and space has no sound. It's really impactful and really powerful when those moments happen.
Yeah, because I remember because Kip Thorne, is he the theoretical physicist or something like that?
That's right.
He was what's the word? Like Carl Sagan and him worked together or something like that. They've got because it wasn't because Contact. I've not seen Contact, but it wasn't. Contact was written by Carl Sagan, and then Kip Thorne is like a close. I can't remember what the term is, but when you work with someone in an education setting. Yeah. So they really closely work together, and this is like a sister movie to Contact, and also McConaughey's in both.
Yeah,
absolutely. So it's a weird. Yeah. So when I was looking up, I was like, I need to watch Contact. I know you guys spoke about things, but I was like, yeah. I mean, he's one of those people, you see him talking, you're like, oh my God, this guy is way beyond any kind of intellectual intelligence I could hope to have, like an absolute genius. Yeah, he basically wrote the story treatment for this, and then gave it to Spielberg, who was interested for a while, got Jonathan Nolan in to flesh that into a proper screenplay. It was quite a different movie, I think, at that point. Then Spielberg walks away, steps in, little bro, big bro, I'm not sure which order they come in. Steps in bro, Chris. And he melded it with one of his own scripts. This is actually a melding of the original kind of Jonathan Nolan, or Jonah as they call him, and Kip Thorne story treatment with Nolan's own original ideas. So that's interesting in itself because it doesn't feel like two scripts melded together. They've done a fantastic job of turning this into one cohesive whole. Yeah, I'd say what I could understand, this isn't the case, but if someone told me this consisted of several short stories written by one person strung together, I could believe that. But no, it doesn't feel... There's too often we tackle films or discuss them and it's like it feels Frankenstein-y. And it's just too much of not enough of things. But this doesn't feel like that at all. I think I read as well that the only thing that Kip Thorne really said is not scientifically accurate is on the ice planet having like basically the ice hails and the clouds in a certain way. He was like, that's literally
too heavy. They would have.
Yeah, and then Christopher Nolan went, I'm keeping them in. They look cool. Yeah. And outside of that, it's the only thing in the whole movie that scientifically doesn't have any grounding to it. It's the only pseudo fantasy element in the whole movie. Yeah. So good.
I liked his rules. I was just looking up here. He had two rules basically. He said when Chris Nolan came aboard, he said nothing can violate established physical laws. And speculations that we offer in the movie, such as the event horizon, such as the black hole and going into it, need to spring from science and not creativity, which I think is really interesting to put that on a filmmaker to say, I'm going to keep stemming your flow of creativity and I'm going to make sure we keep coming back to the science, which is, when we get there, we keep alluding to it, but we will. Fascinating when you get to the end and what happens and the ideas that are being offered there, that he has signed off on that saying, this is scientifically, theoretically possible. So why not depict this in the way that you want to depict it to bring this film full circle? And it's a really interesting full circle movie in terms of where we start, where we finish, the big bloody spaceship we have at the end, which is spherical. I mean, obviously everything's clocks and circles in this, as most Chris Nolan stuff is. But even little things like, and I didn't realise it till researching it to talk to you and thinking about the movie on a deeper level and stuff, things like some of the opening dialogue. Now, the first line of this movie is Murph saying to Coop, her dad, to Matthew McConaughey, "I thought you were the ghost," talking about stuff moving in the room, and it's because he comes up to check on her, and, well, Murph, it might turn out to be true what you say there. And I love the line that he says to her just before he goes, which, you know, will only have more meaning for you now that you're in another phase of your life, when he says, as parents, we become the ghosts of our children, or I'm paraphrasing badly there, but it's something like that. I think there's a really powerful moment in the movie about that idea of, like, you give your life over to this child and you do whatever you can for them to have the best chance. That's how I read that line anyway. And then, of course, he literally does become the ghost of his child. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that kind of meticulous, clever nature of Nolan writing is all there, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think Nolan is a creator that I think one of the reasons he often adapts other people's works so well, because a certain director, Danny Boyle's like it as well.
Yeah.
They adapt work so well. Danny Boyle's probably my favourite director ever, probably. But, you know, Finch is definitely up there. Nolan's up there, you know. But to be fair, Wes Anderson is as well. But for all the different ways. But I think there's certain directors who really need goalposts in place or a starting point to build from. There's certain directors like Tarantino who, although there's a lot of homage stuff, especially with Kill Bill, but like Tarantino's like, I write everything. I kind of absorb 1,000 things. It goes into like a bottleneck blender and I spew out my thing. Whereas there's other directors who are like, I need a foundation and I'll build off that where I go, sort of thing. And I think that Nolan is someone who has such high concepts. You need goalposts. You need a ceiling, be it a physical other person like Kip Thorne, or story-wise, or the studio going, right, you can make this in the way you want to, but you have to do this. Like Oppenheimer, you couldn't make him become Superman. You know, he had to. It's Oppenheimer's biopic, you know, and with Batman, it was like you can make this Batman trilogy, but it still has to be Batman at its core. And I think that he works so well when you have that, because otherwise, and I don't know if Tenet is a book or anything, but I feel like Tenet he was let off the leash a bit much.
Yeah.
And that's when you need someone to be that ceiling for him. And I do think, I've got written down here, this was so good on the rewatch due to the timey-wimey stuff, which is the binary dust signs, of course, but also throwbacks, parents of the ghosts of one's children. He is her ghost. I wrote that. Some space bits as well. You know, there are certain films which do have twists and gut punch moments like this film does, which works so well on the rewatch. I think Fight Club is one of the big ones for that, where, you know, you watch the first time, you go, holy fuck. If by now someone still hasn't had it spoiled, but you just go, I think a lot of teenagers, especially teenage boys, they watch it and they go, oh my God, this film is my personality for a few years until I realize how fucking toxic and bad it is. Like, I love the movie, don't get me wrong, but like, you know, the edginess of it. And then you watch it again because you're showing someone else and you go, oh my God, Tyler Durden's from like the start and when you watch it again, you're like, oh, all these bits. And that's a real brilliance of film, where there's certain films I've watched where you watch in the cinema and you go, oh, that was amazing. Can't wait to rewatch it. And then you rewatch it and you go, okay, it was good, but I didn't like it in the same way. And this is not that. This is really, this reward, because of Nolan's attention to detail, this rewards a rewatch because you pick up on the things that you missed the first time because you're so caught up in knowing what the story is. And I think those throwbacks, that cyclical nature of the themes of the film, as well as Nolan's, you know, specifics with it, both the Nolans, I think it does work so well, like on the rewatch.
Yeah, I mean, I could watch this again when we finish talking about it, to be perfectly honest. And it's only
great.
Yeah. Since I watched it. You know, just talking about certain things now that were, you know, sparking things off in my head and certain scenes. And yeah, there's so much you can draw from this. And I think if I watched it again today, you're right, absolutely right. There'd be things I hadn't noticed the time I watched it for this, when I was being more analytical and trying to think about what are going to be our talking points and what do I really want to talk about that I've noticed this time. And yeah, it definitely rewards repeat viewings, despite those nitpicks and flaws that we're going to talk about as we continue having this conversation. Yeah.
So I think, like, I've got a few other general notes, but really I think there's the four. For me, I think there's the four kind of main points of this movie which we're skirting around, which is obviously there's the two planets, there's the humany, there's the Murph timey-wimey stuff, and then there's the kind of ending timey-wimey stuff, I think. They're the kind of linked with the Michael Caine kind of storyline, but they're kind of the four main parts I think that we have yet to talk about and we should delve into. But my note outside of that is this is a big old NASA advert. It's like it's just a big advert, and I do question. It's tackled in this movie, but I do question sometimes like the value of space travel and explorations and someone on satellites. But I believe they do experiments up there that help with bioculture and stuff on Earth. It's not just about let's go to the moon or Mars or whatever. It's actually, there's experiments done in zero G and stuff to help if we did have some sort of horrendous food crisis on Earth. Growing certain things is biomatter in certain conditions. We can learn how to cultivate that on Earth. So I think NASA does a lot more than just send ships up. That was my thought. I was like, how much money is NASA spending on sending people up doing stuff? And then, I looked into it and I was like, actually, the stuff on the satellites are much more interesting. And then I've also got Nolan cast McConaughey after Mud. And he said he wanted an everyday man to experience an extraordinary event. And also Nolan thinks that McConaughey didn't have a reconnaissance. Everyone just had to catch up with him, which I thought was really nice. And I love it when you hear a film when someone goes, I wrote this film with you in mind and I got you. And then when they smash it out of the park, because I just think the emotional range of McConaughey in this film cannot be understated. The first time I watched it, I was like, this is amazing and emotional and stuff. And maybe it's now because I'm a dad. I had tears in my eyes. They almost went out. And I watched this by myself, I almost was crying to myself. The tears didn't quite go over the boundaries. They don't count. They didn't trickle down my face. But when he's there and he's watching the videos of his son, talking to him and saying, this is the last message I'm going to send you because you're just not responding and you're gone and I don't know what's happened. You're probably fucking dead. And he's just sat there crying. And it became a little bit of a meme, that picture of McConaughey holding his mouth and crying. But actually watching that, because I remember it, but watching that, I was like, this is killing me. I was like, it was really, I was getting the sinking feeling and then my eyes were watering. And I was going, if this scene isn't over in 30 seconds, the floodgates are going to open. I'm going to start crying. Nothing against people crying watching films. I just generally don't. But I just think when I hit that point, I was like, everything I feel about this film is correct in a sense of like, this film is phenomenal, but also McConaughey deserves this. There's certain moments in this movie which really need the right level of intensity and subtlety at the same time, the right inflection on this, the right interactions with these characters, the way McConaughey works with Anne Hathaway, the way he works with Tars, the way he works with the varying Mervs he interacts with. All these things needed a scalpel precision. And if anything was a little bit to this, a little bit to that, even actors that are really good, like DiCaprio, for example, I don't think they would have got certain things that McConaughey did. And I think Nolan, when he says the everyday man experiencing an extraordinary event, I think McConaughey, although we all know him as a superstar, we could get lost with him being Cooper in this. And that's the true nature of acting, isn't it? Getting lost in that role. And I think that's why McConaughey in this makes the film so much greater than it could have been with someone else. Because obviously the sound design's amazing. All the big stuff we've spoken about is amazing. But at its core, like you said at the start, it's a man and it's his journey and trying to save really his family. And it eventually becomes him saving the world. But really he just wanted to save his kids. And that, when he has that realization where he may never see them again and their lives continue without him, that's where the film, he changes as a character, his dynamic, his drive changes. And it's so much meaning in that scene. And it really got to me this time more than on previous watches.
Yeah, it's a pivotal moment in the movie because obviously that, as you're right, that we then start to see Murph's side of it as the grown-up Murph from that point. It's a really interesting change. Like, it's quite a shocking moment actually because you're so in the story with the space exploration and the what their mission is at this point. And suddenly like, whoa, I'm being transported back. I think that's a really clever move. Yeah, I feel like it's a real shame that this became a meme. Bloody millennials and...
It's my fault. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Maybe it isn't even millennials, to be honest. It's probably not millennials. Who comes next?
Gen Z is Gen X, millennials, and
Yeah,
Gen Z. Because millennials are Gen Y, actually. We're the Gen Y, but we've got called
Gen
millennials.
Z's and alphas that have ruined everything with their bloody memes, isn't it? No, because I think you're right. Like, the performance is stunning, and I want to compare it to something in a minute. The performance is absolutely stunning. It's how everything is orchestrated there. Like, we've spoken about the music, so how the music is being used there, how Nolan holds the camera on him there, how when the edits come in, when they do come in, and what they do, it's like a perfect moment in cinema, I think. And it's such a shame, like, that it's become, you know, this silly little thing that people send each other on the internet. But what can you do? I mean, I also understand why, because it's such a perfect moment in cinema. That's why people want to use it. So that kind of makes perfect sense as well. Now I've lost my train of thought. What was it? Oh yeah, what did you compare it to?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a moment in True Detective, actually. And again, I'm not going to ruin anything for you, but there's a moment in True Detective when Woody Harrelson's character sees something which he finds very shocking. And the way that he deals with that and the way that he performs that is the one moment, I'm spoiling this for you when you eventually listen to the pod. It's the one moment when I come out of that show. It's literally the only moment in 8 episodes and I'm like, oh, that's a bit of overacting. Because it makes me think of Nick Cage in 8mm, which I don't know if that's a film that you've seen.
I have not.
I'm sure you know what it's about snuff movies, and actually written by Andrew Kevin Walker, who wrote Seven, which is a David Fincher film.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There's a moment in that when he is watching the snuff movie, and his performance in that is Nick Cage kind of performance, where it's a bit over the top. And I think this scene could have gone there. It could have been over raw. It could have been, I'm going big here. But he doesn't. I think it's perfectly judged between himself and Nolan and what they're choosing to do with this moment, that we understand the gamut of emotions this man feels as he watches these video clips, and all we see for the majority of it is, you know, the flicker of the screen upon his face and the changing emotions that we can read in his eyes and in his expressions. It's very, very powerful. And I think, yeah, absolutely an actor performing at the top of his craft.
Yeah, and I think the makeup crew, and obviously the costume design is amazing, but the makeup crew, I think, really works with McConaughey in this as well, and everyone else, but specifically McConaughey, as he's the one, he's the 0.00 he's the constant in the whole film. Mm-hmm. Because at certain points where he's a lot sweatier and a lot more tired looking and more gaunt in certain ways. And I think that's because the makeup team working with Nolan and obviously McConaughey's performance, there's never a time where you're doubting how he's feeling, what he's experiencing and stuff. You really are bought into his journey. And I don't know if maybe someone like Oscar Isaac, I think maybe had to pull it off. I love Oscar Isaac, of that kind of ilk. It would be a different movie, but there's very few people I think can tackle the nuance, as you say, without overacting. But I do want to say that the physicality of it as well, of that scene and all the other scenes in this, really bring me in and keep me immersed. It's
interesting you say that, because he's still coming out of his Dallas Buyers Club phase, actually. Obviously, we know he lost so much weight and he got himself into the physical shape that he felt best represented Ron Woodruff, as it was in that movie. You can see it in Wolf of Wall Street now that you know how skinny he still is there. You can see it in True Detective. But there's like a gradual kind of, he's getting back to beach body buff McConaughey, and he's kind of halfway there now by the time we get to Interstellar. It's really interesting. It's clear he filmed all of these really close together. By the time he gets to the next movie, he's back and he's like surf body. Yeah, it's fascinating actually. And I wonder whether it'd be interesting to go back and watch Interstellar and think about, we know that they film movies out of order. Everyone knows that. But could we try and piece together like, there's the scene where he's at the start of the shoot of Interstellar, and there's the scene where he's a bit more tanned and he's been a bit more. And yeah, it'd be interesting because especially in the confines of the movie where like there's only, I think when he leaves Earth, there's only the 2 crops. Where there's okras dying, corn is the main one, and there's one other crop, I think. And then they're going, by the time he kind of leaves, it's like corn's going to go as well. We've only got maybe a year or 2 left, and there's no food that you're going to be able to eat at all. So obviously the relationship with food there is going to be different. I do really like the dust stuff as well. Don't think it hit me as much as it did again on this watch, because I can pay attention to the world it has built. But yeah, that scene for me, it's funny because when I was going to watch this, I think a lot of people do this with this movie, where when you think about the biggest gut punch is the going down to the water planet and come back up and the time's gone. And I was like, that's going to be and when it hits that, I go, I remember the rest of the film being really good, but actually that was the peak. But actually, for me, that's no longer the peak
oddly enough. But I didn't want to know if you want us to pause on that bit for a bit and talk about, because what's the planet? Is it Miller's planet?
Yeah, so the planets are just named after the
scientists who found them.
That go there. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's Miller's planet. The thing I love about that's my other favourite bit of sound design in this. And again, I don't think even watching it this time I picked up on it. I'm so drawn into what's happening in the movie. It was reading about it afterwards. That there's a classic kind of Nolan-esque play with sound here. There's almost like a clock tick within the sound, embedded within the soundtrack with everything else that's going on. But I think it's something like it's every 1.34 seconds or something. Yep. And that specificity is because each tick represents a day passing on Earth, which is just such a fucking cool thing that the sort of thing that he does. That means nothing to anybody. And he has to tell somebody that he's done that, or it has to be revealed to us later on. And like, it's like in The Dark Knight. Again, I remember as we all did watching that film and feeling so impressed with Heath Ledger and the movie in general. And after you watch it again, then you watch it again and somebody talks to you about it. And then somebody points it out and you're like, oh yeah, every time the Joker's on screen, there's this unsettling, like drone style noise, either really, really subtle or a bit more, audible, or like, and he plays with it depending on how uncomfortable he wants you to feel in that scene. But he is a master of his craft when he's playing with these ideas. I think it's such a cool little feature within a scene which is so full of tension and your thought about what's happening with his mission, because we just desperately want them to get the information and get back up anyway. It's such a nice little touch that just shows once again how in control of all of the craft Nolan is.
Yeah, it's one of those where because that's about halfway through the film, maybe a bit more, it is kind of, you go, well, I think it's pretty unlikely we're just going to watch everyone die here. You know, it could happen, but you're like, I don't think it's going to happen. So what's the consequence going to be? And obviously the setup is you're going to lose a lot of time. And there is that gut punch when they go back up there and it's been 23 years or whatever it's been. Right, yeah. And it's like, I mean, I always feel bad for the scientist guy who's on board. Yeah. And he's just been by himself for 23 years on a ship, not on Earth, like in I Am Legend or something, not in like a shopping mall, or just on a ship with like minimal things. If you're lucky, like every book ever made on like a special Kindle iPad thing. But can you imagine being by yourself for 23 years? And I think that actor really did so well, because before that he was quite charismatic and quite not quite quippy, but he was a lot more talkative. Then after that, he was way more somber. And I noticed that change, which I really liked. But that, I remember that scene being the gut punch. And I thought this time, especially as you mentioned earlier, like, oh, they've been on there for 2 hours or whatever. And I'm like, but it doesn't, when we're with them, it doesn't feel like anything's cut. It doesn't feel like there's a cut of passage of time.
No, it doesn't.
So it just feels like 15 minutes, maybe. Yeah. Like,
they discover that the ship's been wrecked. Suddenly, shit, that's not a mountain. That's a big tidal wave. Wes Bentley's character gets washed away. They just about survive. And then I guess what we don't see is Anne Hathaway's character and McConaughey's character sitting talking in the ship for 2 hours. That would be a bit boring, I suppose. But yeah, it doesn't feel like there's a cut. I agree with you. It's just they talk for a bit. He's pissed off with her. She's pissed off with him. The next big wave comes. They sort out their engines and fly off. It doesn't quite sell to me the passage of time there. I agree.
And I feel like that, unfortunately, is one of the only times in the movie where it feels like a movie more than realism, and it's trying to be the kind of pull the rug out from under you. Because I think that if we knew, if it was shown to us how much time it had been, we'd know, oh, fuck, it's going to be loads of years. But because when you're watching it, it feels like only a few minutes, you go, God, it was shit that they didn't get that. But at least they've only been gone 15 minutes. And they will only be a couple years. And then they get back, it's 23 years. You're like, what? Because I think everyone experiences that gut punch. Right, even Megan, who doesn't like the film, she felt that. And I think it was a clever choice narratively, but I do think it on rewatches, it shortchanges it a little bit. But I think it is just for that initial, oh, fuck moment.
I do love Case running. It's so cool.
I know the design of Tars and Case is so, like, I was like, when you see them and they're moving that weird
Tars running, isn't it? Not Case. It's Tars.
Yeah, and they're both more or less the same. But like when you see them moving, you're like, okay, they're a slow robot thing. I quite like that. There's quite I like it when you get, dirty sci-fi. I like it when you haven't got a robot that's arm can turn into anything possible, like the Robert Kirkpatrick in Terminator 2. Like, I like it when it's like a realistic kind of thing. Like, humans would make blocky sort of robot things with those kind of arms. That feels realistic in a close future sort of thing. But then when you see them run, you go, that's so cool. Like, it's such a clever design. I love it.
Yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it? What you said about the astronaut that stays up, it made me think of, I quickly looked it up. So Michael Collins was the third astronaut on the Apollo 11 mission, isn't it? And he famously said, like, those guys got to go down to the moon, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin. I was left here in the lunar shuttle, or orbiting the moon. I am literally the loneliest man in the world. Like, when you think about the measurements of, like, from him to Earth and him to those guys on the moon, nobody could be further away. Like, I love that quote from him, obviously in a way that is really moving and meaningful, what he says. And that's what this other astronaut is going through, isn't it? He's stuck up there. He does go in and out of cryostasis, doesn't he? He does put himself in and out of cryostasis. But for a lot of the period of time, because he's very clearly aged, he's greyed. He's just totally up there by himself.
And he says at one point, doesn't he? He was like, I kind of was getting cryosleep, but then I just came out and thought, is there much point anymore? Should I go back? I just don't know what to do. So I just stayed awake. And you got to think, even if that was like 6 months, that would be tough. But I think the impression is definitely it's been years.
Yeah.
And he's a very underrated part of this movie, I think. His acting in it, it's really good. Yeah, it's
David Gyasi, his name is, and it was on this watch. I was like, I know this guy. Where is he from? And he's in The Diplomat. I don't know if you watched that series on Netflix.
No, I haven't.
Russell. He's one of the main actors in that. He's fantastic in that, actually. Looks really different and looks 20 years younger. So again, you were speaking about makeup before. They've done a great job on him here. They've obviously clearly shaved his hair to give him a recede and a bald, but he's a very handsome, charismatic man in The Diplomat.
Yeah, I think I have seen him in The Odd Thing here and there, and I've always thought he was great. But I thought in this specifically, I was like, he's someone we should be talking about a bit more. I didn't write his name down though, so clearly I'm part of the problem. But yeah, I liked that. But for me,
what's the peak? What's the pinnacle view of the emotional ride?
It is the Matt Damon planet. What's
Planet
his...
Man, they call it, yeah.
Man, that was it, Man. Yeah,
M-A-N-N,
Man's the best of us kind of thing. That for me, and I remember the betrayal and stuff, and I always remember it being quite funny, and that and The Martian came out really close together, and it's almost like alternate realities. That Martian, where he's not a complete piece of shit, and he was on a planet and kind of mixed potatoes. I know the plot of Martian's very different, but even though I knew exactly what was going to happen, I think that's where the music really works, bringing that tension up and up and up. And then when that character we were just speaking about dies, I was like, oh no! I was like, I don't remember him being in it that much. And then the explosion happened. I was like, fuck! And I just remember I was like, Matt Damon in this is a real piece of shit. And I was like, I can't remember why. I was like, I know he lies about the planet. I was like, and I think he tries to kill McConaughey, and then I remembered that, in my opinion, is the best part of the whole movie is when they're racing to get to him and he's connecting and he's rushing to connect to that ship so he can just leave them there and go home and lie and cover up this whole thing.
Yeah.
And that's the bit where the sound design for me really, I was like, no, this is top tier, where you've got the difference between the tension with the music with Cooper's ship and the crew trying to chase him, and then him finagling and pressing buttons, and then there's potentially like the alarm going off or whatever, and him like, and then the outside seeing the claws just not attaching, just that silently.
Yeah.
And then the basically jump scare.
Oh, massive jump scare! It got me again this time.
It got me this time as well. I was like, because it's almost like the offbeat. It's almost like the clock thing you mentioned. It's almost like Nolan knows.
In the middle of talking as well.
Yeah.
And you don't do it like she's coming in over the PA, hasn't she? So she gets up. You're right. Like, it's so well done. Yeah.
And when that happens and that explosion, and you watch the people in the ship jump as well, and you jump and like, fuck. And I was like, I've seen this film twice already. I knew that was going to happen. It still got me. So brilliant. But even though obviously again I knew what was going to happen because I've seen it, from the moment where he tries to kill Cooper, from that point up till when they manage to McConaughey's or Cooper's perfect flying, they spin, that's even. Because I was watching it and I was going, oh, this is the best bit when Man fucks up and stuff. And then that happens. And then you see it start burning up and you're like, oh no, what are they going to do now? And then McConaughey flies the ship and Case is like, you're not going to be able to do it, it's impossible. And he's like, no, it's not. And it's the whole Han Solo kind of line of like, no, it's not impossible, I'll prove you. And then he spins it and he trusts his crew, especially Case, to go, right, you need to do this right. I'm going to spin at the same time. And they connect and they bring it back. And I'm like, all of that, I'm just going to sound like such a prick, but that's cinema. From them on Man's Planet, that's where I feel like this could work as a short story. If you showed any person just the thing of after the whole Miller's Planet stuff happens,
walking out and the betrayal.
Once they get from going, we need to go to the discussion of should we go to Man's Planet, should we go to this other person's planet, and then Cooper going, no, we know you're too connected to this other person. We need to go to Man's Planet. He's the best of us, as you said. From that point to the point where they recover the spacecraft, that for me is perfect. And I think you could show anyone that, and they would be like, that's cinema. That's perfect filmmaking of acting, sound design, music, special effects, everything. That's the magnum opus of what film can achieve, and what, in my opinion, one of the greatest achievements Nolan has created. That you know, it's not just Nolan, but he was the herald. He was the one who was kind of pushing it. That chunk in time is my favorite part of the whole movie.
I can see why. It's the only scene which you would quote unquote call action, wouldn't you? I mean, there's a bit of a scuffle and there's a bit of a chase, but not really. But there's explosions and absolutely. It's an excellent sequence, and we keep harping on about the same thing. But there is like almost like a ticking clock again, but in a different way. It's like an escalation. You can feel the escalation slowly but surely coming,
like a pressure,
coming. Yeah, it's so well done, and the balance between again, when we have sound and when we don't, and when we have music and when we don't, and dialogue and we don't. And it's really good. And same as you, we know he's going to dock with the ship. Even the first time you watch it, you know he's going to dock the ship, because otherwise it's the end of the movie and there's still an hour to go. But you don't know he's going to dock the ship because you're so caught up in what you're seeing. Yeah, it's a brilliant sequence. I can't wait for you to watch Project Hail Mary. We need to do like a secondary discussion. We need to do an Interstellar plus Project Hail Mary special episode, because it's so influenced by this. There's going to be so many things you're watching in that, which I hope is going to be a really good adaptation. It's a great book where you're like, okay, all right, yeah. Weir really loves Interstellar.
Well, a friend of mine read the book, and she was like, you'd love the book. And I was like, I know, I've got a million books to read. I'll watch it, I'll read it at some point. And then the movie came out, and she was like, she mentioned it. And I was like, well, you know, I love going to the cinema, and her partner isn't as fussed to watch the movie. So we are planning to go see it, I think, within the week of it coming out. It's like mid-March, it's my birthday.
Month, isn't it? Yeah.
So I am planning, I think March 19th, I am planning on watching it. So I'm more than happy for us to figure out a time after that, and whether or not you want to do it afterwards the cinema, I'll wait for it to come out in home release and then rewatch it or whatever. I'm happy to do another pod. It could just be on genuine chit chat. It could be here as a bonus episode, whatever. I'm happy to talk sci-fi and all that, and movies.
A comparison piece. I think it'd be really interesting to look at that kind of straight line between the two, for sure.
Because I know nothing about it, and I love going into a movie completely blind. Megan hates it. She's like, if I'm going to show a movie, she's like, can we watch the trailer? And I'm like, no, go into it not knowing anything. She's like, I don't want to go, no. And I'm like, but if you watch a trailer, it will give you an impression of something, and you'll see stuff that will spoil it, inevitably. So just go in not knowing anything. But I understand why.
Have you seen the trailer for Project Hail Mary?
No. I've seen the...
It is a spoilerific trailer, actually.
I've seen when it was... I think when the movie was basically near completion and there was a lot of hype around it, the audiobook keeps getting recommended to me on Audible. And so I've seen, but it's not the original cover, it's the movie cover with Ryan Gosling.
Okay, yeah.
And I think I remember, don't correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think it was something like a guy comes out of cryosleep and he's on a space station alone or something. It's like one guy who's kind of alone for reasons. That's all I know. So if that's even right, but I just know something about isolation, something about Gosling, and he's by himself. So I'm like, yeah, sure, sci-fi, go on in.
What did you think of the idea? Because they kept, speaking of actors and their performances and big stars, they kept the Matt Damon character as a reveal, didn't they, in the movie as well? We spoke about, being other reveals, but here, this was a surprise. I remember watching this and being like, what the fuck? That's Matt Damon.
Yeah.
They get panned out of the cryo chamber. They've really kept it under wraps. It's quite impressive, really.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing to do. I'm fine they did. I'm like, oh yeah, it is quite fun. It's hard though, isn't it? Because I suppose one of the reasons they probably did is because by that point in the film, if they said Matt Damon's in the film and he's a bigger character, and then you'd go, oh, he's on Miller's planet, and then you go to Miller's planet, he's not there, you go, well, he's obviously at the next planet then. And it would kind of lead you on, and also then it goes, yeah, and when there's actors of a certain ilk, a lot of the time you would expect them to have big roles and stuff. It's why it's quite fun when when there's an actor in a movie, like probably Drew Barrymore in Scream and stuff like that, where you go, oh, this actor's in this movie, and then they die really quickly, or they're only in it for like a fleeting moment. Mm-hmm. Bryan Cranston in Godzilla makes me think of one as well, where it's like, sometimes it's annoying and you go, ugh, why were they in all this press and promo and stuff when they died in the first 10 minutes just so the rug could be pulled out from you? Or you have that expectation. So I think it was quite fun. I do wonder if certain people, they got pulled out a little bit, go, oh. But then I suppose it is kind of, I think I didn't, and I quite like it because I think what it is we're meant to feel about Matt Damon the same way that Anne Hathaway's meant to feel about Man the Engineer. To go, oh shit, it's Matt Damon. Yeah. This is awesome. Okay. Exactly. Yeah, because like...
He's going to save the day. It's Jason Bourne.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like Matt. If it was like Ben Affleck, you go, oh, he's a piece of shit. But because it's Matt Damon, you feel almost safer with him. And I think that was almost a clever decision to do that. Of you going, oh my God, it's Matt Damon. Oh, sick. No, this is where the film turns around and things start getting good because it's nearer the end of the film. And then you get the sense of like something's not quite right when his version of Tars is like all ripped apart and you're like, that seems like overkill. And all these little hints, and then there's a part you go, no, something's definitely amiss. And then he tries to kill Coop, and you go, God, he's a piece of shit, isn't he? And then it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. You're like, oh no, you're one of the worst humans who's ever lived. It's like you would literally ruin, like destroy these people's lives, and you fucked up all the science stuff, and you lied about things just because you were a coward. And that's what Cooper calls him that. Yeah. And so I love his journey, man's journey. And I think Matt Damon did an excellent job. So I like the reveal. I think it was, there is that part where I go, did it peel people out? But no, I think you're meant to feel, oh shit, it's Matt Damon. That's awesome. Oh no.
And very like, I think a lot of the names, as most names are in movies, are important. And I think people like Cooper is a famous, DB Cooper is a famous pilot, wasn't he? That went missing.
Yes, who disappeared. Yeah.
Amelia Brand is Amelia Earhart and stuff. Yeah. And him being called Man feels very deliberate too, right? So I thought I'll do a quick little search, man with two N's as well. So it has that kind of, but yeah, essentially it's got Germanic heritage, but it means kind of like the one man, or the man, as in like the most important man, which is really interesting. Like, it's very deliberate here, isn't it? In terms of like, he's supposed to be the best one of us. He's supposed to be the one, but look at the choices he makes. Look what he does. He lures them there, doesn't he? He fakes the message to say this is a habitable planet so he can be saved, so he can have people with him. And the worst piece of shit, yeah.
Yeah, and Anne Hathaway loses out on being reunited with her partner because when she gets there, it's too late and her partner's gone. I think is when you get that really, really, really short scene at the end. The indication is she gets there, the planet's habitable, but actually her partner's dead.
Yeah, I can't think what his name is.
No. But it's like a momentary thing.
We never meet him, do we, obviously?
No, it's just they talk about it when they're trying to sabotage Man's planet, the other one, and then Cooper kind of convinces them to go, well, you're only thinking that because of love.
He makes your decision, doesn't he, Cooper? But is that the scene you were talking about that you don't like? Is Hathaway's character, Brand, does the big speech about the power of love? Yes.
I think the power of love stuff is irritating. When I first watched it, it pissed me off a lot more. Because I think, I was a bit younger. I mean, this came out like nearly 12 years ago, so, and I'm 32 soon. So I was 20, when this came out. So I was in the peak of stop being an edgy kind of teenager and start being a young adult who's becoming more fully formed, but probably still thought too much of himself. And the whole, I don't like the trope that love beats all. Like, obviously, as I am optimistic in general, and obviously I love a huge amount of things and people, including you, good sir. And, I tell my friends and family I love them all the time. When I speak to almost anyone on the phone who's a friend of mine, I normally end the call saying, I love you, bro, or I love you, man, or something like that. I show that affection. And I think it is important. There's lessons like in Star Wars and stuff, which is love trumps hate. And I do believe that. And I believe hate is learned, but love is instinctual. But the speech she gives, I just think is complete horseshit, to be honest. It feels like it's from a completely different movie. And it just doesn't feel right. It's like, I get Cooper challenges this, but by the end, he's kind of on board because of his relationship with Merv and stuff. And I'm like, I kind of know what you're trying to say, and it's a message of hope and all that kind of stuff. But for me, it falls flat. I like the idea, but I think the way it's conveyed of going, love goes beyond dimensions and it's a physical thing, but it's also not. I'm like, no, it is not. Okay. It is empirically, it's a human thing. There may be other animals that can experience love, like dolphins and orcas and beings that have hierarchical intelligence beyond that. You know, when my dog Willow sees me, she experiences love. When she sees me, she gets the serotonin boost, whatever. But I do not believe in a scientific term that love is a actual force. That doesn't make any sense. It's not. It's a thing that humans have it's a term humans have created to explain a combination of feelings and social structures and stuff. And again, Cooper says this, and she goes, yes, well, here's one exception that he can't answer. And I remember watching it at the time, and I go, I have an answer for that. I can't remember what she said now to think of what my response would be. But I was like, for Nolan, this just felt odd. Yeah. But that's, for me, that's the only real criticism of the film. But there's the odd little nitpick. But for me, that's the bit that makes me feel this film is... Realistically, I think I do give this maybe a 9.5 out of 10, more than a 10, because 10 is perfect. You can't change a single thing about it. It is the love stuff and the fact it comes back near the end, and Cooper kind of changes his mind on it a bit and actually is like, actually, yeah, love is. And it's like, for me, it's not. And having the counter argument in the movie doesn't unvalidate that. It just actually kind of worsens it. It's like when a movie does something and it points out something's a trope in a movie. It doesn't make the trope okay. You've actually just made it worse by pointing out it's a trope and it's annoying. But I don't know if you had the same opinion or if you have a challenge to that, which I'm open to.
No, it's interesting to think about, the other things we've spoken about, whether is this one of the things which was in the original script? Because this feels Spielbergian.
It does.
Or is this one of the things that actually Nolan was asking to be put in because of where the film, as you said, ultimately goes, in that love does become the power which saves us all. I just don't know. I can't quite decide. I think that speech is difficult, and I'm going to say something that's maybe a little bit unfair. I don't think Anne Hathaway is capable of delivering that speech.
I think she's the only person in the movie who is a bit miscast. I think she's great, but
in anything, if I'm honest, I think she's fine. I think she's a fine actress. Yeah. I don't think she's an actress who has the qualities to have got to the place that she's got to.
I think that's fair.
I think something like Jennifer Garner, who has been in Dallas Buyers Club with McConaughey, has been in Ghost of Girlfriend's Past. McConaughey was in Alias, which was a great show where she showed unbelievable range in that show. Something like that, I think, should be at the top echelons of kind of the profession and isn't. And there's always reasons why this happens. But Hathaway's fine, but she is not capable of delivering this monologue, in my opinion. And I agree, she is miscast. I don't think she's great as Catwoman either. Nolan clearly likes her. But
yeah,
that's a problem. I don't mind the end, and we're going to get to that in a second, I think. Emma did have a problem with it. We finished watching it and she was like, I really like that film, just the end. The end just bothers me. And that is what bothers most people with this movie, is the final scene. I think it bothers me less because it does come back to the principles we spoke about of what this film is about. We'll do the black hole first, of course. But this idea of there being a dimension, and we know that this is true, there may be up to 8, they're now saying, right? Dimensions. String theory is trying to prove that there's, and again, this is stuff I'm really interested in, but my brain is not smart enough to fully understand. So I'm doing proper layman's interpretation of it, but I'm reading about it because it's touched upon in True Detective, actually, interestingly, as well as here. That, yeah, there's a possible there's going to be these 8 dimensions, and you and I will never know. It's not going to happen in our lifetimes. It may not even happen in the whole of humanity's lifetime. It's something which they're going to keep looking at. But we already know there's more beyond the initial 3 that we thought there were, the height, length, and width, and time is now the 4th. So I
think parallel is the 5th, I think, or something like that. So
this is speculating, isn't it? The love is the 5th. That's the point of this section of the movie, I think, is that it introduces the idea here. So when we get it at the end, we are meant to believe that love is the 5th dimension, because it is a thing that can traverse, as gravity can traverse time. I do like the saying of, why do we love people that are dead? I think that's a really interesting point. Like, why does that love continue? So that ties into what they do later, of that idea of like love and gravity traverse what we know as time. I think that's clever. I think that works. But it does feel like sentiment from a different movie.
Yeah, and I'll say, I haven't got an issue with the ending specifically. We'll talk about that stuff when we get there. But like, with Anne Hathaway, I think most things I see her in, she's fine. But I think she doesn't have much range. That's my issue. I see her in like Devil Wears Prada. I'm like, you're great in this. And then I see her in Princess Diaries. I'm like, you're just the same as you are in Devil Wears Prada. And then as Catwoman, I'm like, you're fine. But I don't feel with Catwoman, you're meant to be intimidated by, but also she's meant to be a certain level of like attractive, but like, she's meant to be like seductive, but dangerous. And I never get that from Hathaway. She's the least dangerous person I've ever seen on screen. She is very attractive in certain ways, and that's not specifically the point in this film. And from interviews I've seen with her, she seems like an incredible person, lovely human being, but she's not got that edge to her that like Zoe Kravitz I think does have in the new Batman. And even Michelle Pfeiffer definitely has that. She has the dangerous edge, which is like, she could sleep with you, but she could also kill you. And Anne Hathaway, I never got that, and that's a lot of Catwoman's personality in a way, the danger. And I think in this, she just comes across a bit wet. And I'm just like, I feel like you need someone who comes across as a strong, powerful woman to really not intimidate, but be able to kind of not quite fight, but you know what I mean? Like keep them on their toes, like actually confront and argue with.
Mission leader.
Yeah, exactly. She never feels like it at any time.
No.
She just feels like a scientist.
Michael Caine.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't feel Merv as an adult. Yes. Her personality, she challenges men and everyone. She's in charge every time. And exactly. When she challenges Michael Caine and she finds out and she gets the anger, and then when she's even talking to Cooper in that one message she sends, she's got the fire. She has the anger. She has the strength to challenge and not be intimidated by someone. And Hathaway, for the most part in movies, but especially in this film, doesn't have that. So it's that whole thing where she's meant to be in charge, but she never really seems to ever be. And then also she has this kind of argument with Cooper, but she never seems like she's passionately arguing. She kind of almost always seems like she's on the verge of tears, which doesn't work. That's not it needs to be someone arguing, almost the way I'm arguing, not against you, but against the world, about the love thing. The passion I feel, not anger, but the passion and the fire that I have that often gets misconstrued as anger or rudeness. You need that to put forward this idea that love, no, Coop. It's not, no, Coop. Love transcends all. You don't need that. You need Coop. Love transcends anything. Think about it. When you die, why would you do that? That challenge, that standoffishness, that's how I would have cast this. And then when she's upset, it would have more weight to it, as opposed to her just always seeming like a sad character. Yeah. And I think that's what loses me when I see her at the end. I'm like, I don't really care. I feel like I should, but I don't. She's the only character. I care more about Tars than I do about her, which is a problem. Yeah. And I think the love thing, when they say, that when they said that, why do you love people when they die? Beautiful sentiment. That doesn't prove that love transcends everything. What, in my opinion, what it is that as humans, we have our brains have developed in a certain way, and we have incredible memories. And the way that is a genetic imprint. Is the same reason why you protect your young is that kind of same instinct of protecting your young, your genetics, and someone you care about, your tribe, the memory, the genetic heritage, the trauma we've learned through DNA, which is why so many people are still scared of spiders and snakes, even though they've never had an interaction with them. All these threads put together all combine, in my opinion, of why the psychology of remembering and caring and feeling emotion about someone when they pass away is because also emotions are something that are not tangible in sort of a certain way like gravity is, but it is still something we experience, and you can't just turn it off. Mm-hmm. It's like when you have, I've obviously got a dog. Okay, when there's something that scares her and the scary thing goes away, she doesn't stop being scared. There's a residue fear response there. Like with everything. If someone does something horrible to you and you feel sad, they go, oh no, don't worry, I was just joking. You don't just feel good again. You have the emotional resonance, that's what it is. That's how I perceive it as someone who's gone through quite a lot of grief in my life, It's one of those, and it's a memory thing, and it's a closeness to keep you with your tribe. If you and someone separate has lost someone that means something to you, that is someone who's passed away, the grief you feel with that to that individual who's no longer with us, if someone else feels the same grief to that person or the same grief to someone else, it actually connects back to social bonding. So again, that's what I was thinking when I was watching the film. I was like, that argument doesn't make sense. If you actually think about it, it's just a bit more complicated. Obviously, I didn't want a whole argument where Coop and Anne Hathaway have a 30-minute ideological discussion on what love is. But I don't think you need this discussion of love transcends dimensions and time. I think what it should be is human nature and the need to survive transcends that. And love is a core characteristic of human nature. What makes humans is their capacity to love and unfortunately their capacity to hate. But when love transcends, that's when we get saviors of the human race. That's what I think the argument should have been. That's what I think the discussion should have been, which is it's a part of the survival and what makes humans, not just love is this ethereal force that transcends time. That doesn't make any sense. So that's my biggest gripe with the film. That it did agitate me, and I just spoke for a long time then. I'm sorry.
No, as you were talking, I was obviously listening to you, but I was also thinking about other aspects of what we've spoken about. You talking about being a big Danny Boyle fan and the idea of Anne Hathaway and the casting, and I'm sure you've seen Sunshine.
I love that movie.
Yeah, brilliant.
So underrated.
Think
Barely anyone's seen it.
Michelle Yeoh in that, like the character she plays. You need to transpose that character then into this. There's so many other ways you could have taken that, and I think it would have offered a much more interesting perspective of two people coming up from a different ideological perspective that then can meet in the middle. Because we're meant to buy at the end that Coop's flying off to go and find Bran because he's fallen in love with her.
Is that actually what the point is?
Well, maybe he's not fallen in love with, but he feels drawn to be back with her. That's where he's going, right?
I thought he just felt guilt. I just thought he felt guilty because he basically is the reason that she lost her partner, and no one else is looking for her because everyone's all saved. So she's there by herself, and he understands the loneliness of being
interesting.
By himself.
I always read it because love is the fifth dimension. That now that they are,
it could be. I've never thought of that, but that might just be because her relationship with Coops is so unconvincing in any capacity that I didn't think that he loved her in that way. Because I don't remember him, like when they split, when they go their separate ways, it doesn't feel like there's any remorse between either of them. She's just like, wait, what? You sent me off? And he's like, yeah, you've still got a mission to do. I'm going to go do this borderline suicide mission. And it's like,
Other than when we get the other kind of full circle moment, don't we then learn that it's his finger that's reaching out to her through time as he's going through the black hole, don't we? So when they're first...
Oh, when she says first contact thing.
Yeah, first
contact. I never connected that, actually.
That's him, isn't it? And I think about that being like the Michelangelo painting of David or whatever it's called, you know.
I was having a conversation about that yesterday, weirdly enough.
Of Adam. That's meant to be him, isn't it? Because you kind of see it from his perspective as he's traversing through the black hole, which is what we're about to talk about now. Because in order to get her to the third planet, they don't have enough fuel, essentially, do they? So they do what they always do in these sci-fi movies. They do like a special whiplash move around like a planet or a moon or a black hole,
and then drop the load and increase acceleration. And every single one. And when they're like, well, how are we going to do this? There's a big black hole. We'll just slingshot around it using its gravity. Everyone knows that.
That's what actually, they do it in Armageddon. We'll slingshot around the moon so we land on the asteroid in the right place. And he doesn't tell her, does he, that they know they're going to drop TARS because he's going to try and get the data, but they also need to lose more weight. So he drops his shuttle down into its hole and he ends up going to the black hole. Really interesting section of this movie, and this is the heavy 2001 stuff that when you do watch that, I can't wait to hear what you think once you've watched it. His transport through the black hole was such a fascinating kind of visual journey for us, seeing what happens. Because he kind of this moment when the ship's saying to him, he's already blacked out once, and the ship's saying to him like eject, as almost like a fighter pilot, like bloody Maverick in Top Gun or something. I'm like, fucking hell, no, don't eject. You're in a black hole, mate. Like that's
in space.
Yeah. But he does, he ejects, and then he's just out there in his spacesuit. It's such a interesting moment. And again, who knows? Nobody knows. Nobody will ever know. We why not? If this is where they chose to take it, that maybe you would survive in a spacesuit in a black hole. Who knows?
Yeah, I think they do lead up. yeah, I mean, I think they do lead it up in the film because they say that there's the black hole there's the wormhole they go through at the start of the film, and they go, who put it there?
That's
they
really
did.
Cool. It's a sphere, isn't it? Yeah. No,
yeah.
I love that conversation. You thought it was a hole? No, it's a sphere, obviously.
Yeah, the visuals of that is amazing, but I think almost that is almost like the opposite end of the spectrum of it. I'd kind of go, well, they would transfer like a wormhole thing, so I guess a black hole. I mean, I think the understanding is if you went through a black hole, you'd become spaghettified. I think that's the general idea.
Yeah.
And I think, you even if you went through it and came out the other side, is that kind of the Buddhist idea of like, or not, but there's the Buddhist linked idea, but like the teleportation thing is where we have to split together and then reformed is actually not you. It's a version of, it's the identical version of you, but you've actually died.
That's the Star Trek, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That kind of thing. That's it about the Buddhist thing, because there's certain ideas of like when you go to sleep, you actually die and then you're reborn with the memories behind you. There's all that kind of fun theoretical things that we don't have time to get into. But yeah, I think visually it's awesome. Sound design's amazing. But I think it was such an achievement that when he's in the weird dimension-y thing and he's seeing the strands and the kind of the way that it explains of like these beings know how to not only perceive but manipulate time in a way that we do with our y, x, z axes, and the way that we can interact with the physical world. Just time is a thing that eludes us. They can actually interact with time in a certain way. Every time I watch it, it makes me even more sense to me. I can understand why people wouldn't get it, and that's the bit that lost Megan. But I don't think it's actually that complicated. It is on paper, but I think the way they showed it visually, and you get enough sciencey stuff being told to you with enough visual stuff to understand. It's like they've just made, they call it the Tesseract. They've just made an area in space just for McConaughey, for Cooper, to be able to conceptualize of, and he can interact with this one space and time that happens to be in that bedroom, and that is everything he's seeing is essentially 5 or 10 minute chunks of that bedroom infinitely from his life, and he just needs to be able to find it. And I like the fact, I always forget about it, that they never communicate with him. They never speak to him, they never communicate with him, there's no words that pop up. It's just Tars going, I don't really know, maybe this, and then Coop figures it out. Yeah. And I really, really like that. I forgot how much I like that, and him saying it out loud to Tars is really him telling the audience, yes, this is what I think it is. Yeah, it's a clever decision to have. Suddenly Tars becomes a disembodied voice, doesn't he? If it is really Tars, of course. I like that, and I think they make great pains, and it's almost a drop line of dialogue, and I think it's clever the way they do it in that they tell us, as you've just said, very specifically, this has been created for him. And I think that's really, really important. That's perhaps something that is often missed, because it's kind of a throwaway line, I think, and it's in amongst everything else that's going on visually and orally that you've got to try and pay attention to. It's not push forward, because Nolan doesn't do that. He doesn't like, here's massive exposition for you. It'll be bled in. It'll be subtle. Yeah, it's such an interesting scene, and it takes Cooper a bit of time to figure out what's going on, which I think is great. Yeah. He's a very smart guy, but he's kind of he's a man of action as well as a man of science. So his brain doesn't immediately work out what's going on. He has to process everything. I really like that. And it comes through this kind of organic conversation with Tars, and that whoever came up with the idea to make Tars sarcastic is a fucking genius. That humor of this film, I always forget how good it is. Even at the end, when it's just like... Up to this point, absolutely. Yeah. He's in a black hole, and it's still funny. Absolutely, yeah. The way that Tars is talking to him. And droids, as you said before, droids in sci-fi are the best. Star Wars kind of started off with 3PO and stuff, and again with K2SO and Rogue One and Andor and stuff. But you get a robot who doesn't understand humans really there, and that little difference, the kind of valley between humans acting weird and thinking it's normal and robots pointing out, is so brilliant when done right. And in this, it's perfect. And when you've got the self-referencing of Tars making jokes, let's turn that humor down. Yeah. I know it's jumping ahead, but that bit at the end when he's fixing up Tars right at the end, he's like, let's do humor like 80 or 90, and he's like self-destruct in 5, 4, and he's like back down to 60. And it's like that is comedic genius writing, I think. Those bits, everything with Tars, there's a lot of heart I found with Tars, weirdly enough. Yeah, for something that's a square, or maybe a rectangle. Cuboid? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's an interesting moment, but very well written, isn't it? I mean, whether you buy into
the fifth dimension, love will save you all moment or not. The full circle nature that we've spoken about, the sphere, the circle within the square, within the hole, and a sphere inside a round peg inside a square hole, whatever you want to say. It's really well done, isn't it? Like when we start to see the ghost interacting with Murph from the other side of this wall, and we suddenly understand what's happening here. It's a really powerful moment because of, again, mostly I think the performance of McConaughey here, where goes from that Murph, don't let me go moment to, that is the outburst moment, which I think is just about pitched right, to a much more subtle realization and excitement of like how he's going to get this message across to her. And this interaction with Tars is so well judged.
I agree. And I remember when I first watched it, and even the second time, one of my critiques, something I viewed as a plot hole, but actually was me not understanding the film enough, was I was like, him getting those messages to Merv, it's too far removed. How the hell would you figure that out? But I think that actually on this watch, it really made the most sense to me, so the dust thing, obviously, the dust stuff is very clearly of the world of dust. Like, I love the whole documentary stuff at the start. I completely forgot about that. Right at the start of the documentary, and then at the end, you kind of subtly see, actually, these people, they're the old versions of the characters you see in the thing. That's actually really Cooper's kids and whatever. I thought that was very clever as a side note. I forgot to mention at the start. But when you see how much dust there is, when Merv sees more dust in one way than the other, even Cooper looks at it and goes, that's a bit weird. And then Merv is like, look, it says Merv. And that thing of her being so clever and her seeing it saying Merv, that's the thing that made her go from this is a weird stuff happening to something is actually overtly communicating with me.
Yeah.
And that, I think, subtly leads itself to when Merv goes back into that room and kind of figures stuff out, and she's like, wait a minute, there's more to this room than I thought. When I first saw it, I was like, how the hell would she think to go back to that room and find the watch and do all this? But it's not like that. It's the watch gets thrown, I think the watch breaks, and then Coop touching the thing makes the second hand work again, and you go, oh, this watch was broken and it was my dad's, and it's working again, but it's going weird. But it's not just weird in a on-off way. It's doing it in a consequential sequence, which is which is the binary kind of, or is Morse code.
Morse code, isn't it? Yeah.
And then, but she knows Morse code because she reads these books and stuff, and she's interested by it. And that links with she learned her name was written and don't leave was written in binary. So it does lead you to that thing where she goes in this room, there's weird stuff happening, and there's old codes, old ways of communicating being used to communicate with her in this room. And so when I first saw it, I was like, oh, the chances of that. But actually, knowing what she's like as a character, what she was like as a kid, what she experienced, and what she interpreted in this room, I think it all actually does work. I think that's a bit that some people may not connect with in a way, where they go a bit like, because that's how I felt about it. That was my only sticking point, was I was like, the watch, what? But actually on the rewatch, I'm like, no, the watch was broken, so that's why it makes sense, I think.
And it's nice seeing her work through it as well. It's not just like a eureka moment again. She kind of slowly comes to the realization and works it out. I mean, it's contrived, obviously. The daughter is the one who saves them, and he's fine. But I mean, movies are contrived. All stories are contrived. I really like the idea that a human and an AI are the things that are responsible for saving humanity. I think that's I don't know whether this was meant, but I certainly took it this time. I think that's a really interesting idea, that it's the combination of Tars and Cooper and then Murph being included that means that all of this is possible, that humanity can leave. And I think that's really cool. If Tars hadn't gone in there with Cooper, he wouldn't have figured it out, or if it had just been Tars, so I think that's
and Tars saves people numerous times, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Tars saves Anne Hathaway's character, which has its own repercussions. And Tars, he helps when Cooper's trying to spin the ship, or Case and Tars both help Cooper spin the ship and stuff. So the whole time, the value of them is shown. And I think we're in a weird space at the moment. Again, this could be a whole other conversation itself, but we're in a weird space because I'm generally not for AI for the most part. I think using it for medical stuff and large calculations and kind of that shit, great. Using it for audio cleanup is really good. Transcriptions and translating, really good for accessibility for people. Generative, just creating images of you as a fucking donut or as a Studio Ghibli character, the amount of water it uses, the amount of energy, not really worth it. The amount of data they're sucking up and the amount of poor information they're giving out and the hallucinations they're having is a problem. But hopefully it's just a transitionary period. But that said, 5-10 years ago, before AI was accessed by everyone and their mums on Facebook, AI, when it came to droids, like in Star Wars especially, the actual artificial life, not just ChatGPT answering stupid questions, people are asking it wrong, an actual living thing that it's trying to service humanity, I think there is, in the future, potential value for that. And I like in movies when they have that. The droid characters are almost always the best. I love them. I mean, one of my favourite movies ever, I'm not saying it's in the god tier of trilogies like this, but I love it. I know it's very flawed, is iRobot. I adore that movie. A lot of people hate it. I'm trying to get Spider-Dan to do it on his pod. It's currently that against The Abyss, and The Abyss is winning on his Patreon. But I love that movie, and it is about, it's got Alan Tudyk, obviously you played K2SO. So I do like that, and I like it when you have movies where they have original new ideas of robots or AI or whatever you want to call them, and when they interact with humans in a positive way, rather than it always being Skynet or that weird Johnny Depp movie where he becomes like an AI thing and I can't remember, Transcendence or something.
Yeah. Interestingly, Wally Pfister, who was Nolan's cinematographer until he went to do that, so it's Hoytmer in this one. So yeah,
but yeah, I liked that AI stuff. I thought it was good.
Yeah, it's because there's a quote from Nolan about this film. It's a quote from Cooper in this film, but it's very much one of Nolan's mission statements about this film. Tying back into what we said at the start about this idea of like it's a advert for NASA. It absolutely is. Yeah. What does Nolan say? Some of that behind the scenes stuff I watched. He says his goal was to encourage. No, this is bad wording. Sorry. His goal was to encourage the goal of human spaceflight. So, he's not sugarcoating that. That's 100% what he wants this movie to do, is to almost try and get people to change their mind on NASA again, much like Top Gun did with fighter pilots, right? Everybody signed up for the Navy flying force after Top Gun. I think he wanted everyone to do that for NASA here. But Coop says, we used to look up in the sky and wonder at our place in the stars. Now we just look down and worry about our place in the dirt, which is obviously telling because of the plot line of the dirt and the issues with the crops, but it's definitely a Nolan statement. And in some of the behind the scenes stuff, he talks about this idea of like, we've lost our sense of wonder, and what we do instead of looking out the window and interacting with the world is, of course, we're all looking at our phones, we're all engaging in social media, social media wasn't the force it is now in 2014, but it was growing. Smartphones were growing as well.
It was the heyday of Facebook, I think.
So really interesting that in a movie where he's clearly criticizing our internalization and our growing sense of lack of involvement with the world, I'm not finding the words here, sorry, that actually in the end, part of that is one of the things which really helps save us. I think there's a really interesting dichotomy there.
I get that. Yeah, I understand. I understand the concept of it. I think Musk has ruined it a bit, because I think Musk 10 years ago was kind of like, oh, maybe he's good. And then it's like, no, he's just an egotistical piece of shit. And he's just ruining a lot of stuff now. So I think it was almost that at the time, I think a lot of us, that was when Musk was talking about going to Mars and doing all that stuff and doing all these great things for humanity. And obviously since then, he's, the money he spent on buying and destroying Twitter could have been used to basically cure world hunger. Not to mention all tax evasion-y stuff that billionaires do. But I think that's kind of, we were in a hopeful state then. I think the world's a bit more on fire now. So I think it's like, maybe we should focus back on the dirt for a little bit before. But I do understand the dichotomy of it. And it is kind of, we need dreamers in this world. Like we need them. Dreamers have pushed technology and various parts of our lives in ways we can't imagine. I'm not the biggest fan of Shakespeare, but he changed literature and by proxy the entirety of, at very least, the English-speaking language. He changed it more than almost anyone. His impact on the world is beyond measure because he just was a passionate playwright. There are people in this world, Nikola Tesla's one of them, and there's lots of people who they seem to be focusing on that at the time. People going, why are you focusing on that thing? There's more important things to think about. And then actually you don't know the ripple effect of what that can be, how important that can be. So I do think I would encourage, again, when I have when Melody grows up and etc., it'll be like, yeah, follow your dreams, think outside the box, look out the window. You know, it's not just about trying to be realistic. You do need dreamers. And I think Cooper's really encapsulates that idea of maybe not have every single person a dreamer, but you can't have every single person a farmer either. You need a mix of them all. And I've got a note here, which actually is, I think of this movie, I've written Murph is the, in brackets, his heart, and he is the, brackets, her, soul/protector. And I think that at its core, what I'm trying to get at there is Murph is the heart of the movie. She's the reason Cooper does anything. She solves the problem. She is the savior of the human race. You know, there's that great bit at the end where he's like, yeah, and he's like, I can't believe you named it after me. And the doctor's like, I didn't name it. We didn't name it after you. It's after your daughter. Like, and that's quite a fun little thing. But like, Murph is the heart of the whole movie. You know, his son is troubled, but not a bad person necessarily, but goes down a sort of wrong path and seemingly writes himself after Murph slaps him out of it a bit, it seems. But Murph is the heart of the movie, but Cooper is the soul. Cooper is that, I think the thing that Anne Hathaway's character was trying, as Brandt, but Anne Hathaway was trying to show is beyond just our human form. Cooper's aspirations, Cooper's drive, what Cooper achieves in the end goes beyond what the confines of being human is, which I think was the idea of that love conversation, which I would argue is more connected to the soul. I don't necessarily believe there is a soul, but there is something a bit more to being human than I think we all can comprehend, be it 5th dimensions or 8th dimensions or whatever. But I think that that's how I kind of perceive this movie, is he's the soul and the protector, the guardian angel, and the bubble over it, but she is the beating heart of the movie. And I think when you get that halfway point, when you start to see her perspective, that's when it really goes, oh, this is Cooper's journey, but really his journey through his kids, the ghost of, is actually her journey. And I think that's quite a very good layering of themes in this, which I think connects with what you were saying about the kind of the dreamer, is you have to have both the dreamer and the person who's the realist on the ground simultaneously. You need them both.
Yeah, working in tandem together. Yeah. Really interesting you say that. That's definitely how Nolan felt about McConaughey. He said, Matthew's a lovely soul, great spirit and a lot of fun to work with, but my God, what a fantastic actor. So yeah, interesting.
They're going to say what a fantastic arse then. So I thought you were going to say.
Probably true as well.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say before we start thinking about wrapping up? I mean, we've covered a lot. I think we've done a great job. It's obviously a very practical movie. I think that's worth talking about. You know, location shooting was really important. Those places, the planets, Miller and Man, were filmed in Iceland. I mean, wow, I want to go to Iceland and go and look at those places.
Iceland is my favourite place on Earth, and I've just booked a trip to go there again in October. I went a few months before I met Megan, and it was delightful. You've never been to a place where there's cleaner air and nicer people. And people across the world go to Iceland, but everyone speaks English because Icelandic is such a weird niche language, and there's only like 200 to 300,000 people in Iceland. So it's just so many people there all speak English, and in all their different dialects and different accents. And because it costs quite a lot to get there, you generally don't get many dude bros on a stag do or something. It's just a beautiful, incredible place. The air tastes amazing, and there's great things to see. And there's also a museum of phallology, which is a penis museum, which is hilarious. And it's just loads of animal penises everywhere. It's so funny, and it's really cheap. So of the beauty of Iceland, all the amazing things you can do there, there's also a penis museum. So I've highly recommend Iceland. I'm going there again. All
right. So go to the Interstellar tour and the penis museum.
Yes. I mean, the practical effects, both, I love on location shooting. I think that's the thing that Star Wars has failed at recently, using the volume too much. I think there's a huge amount of use for it. The volume is incredible. What they've done there is amazing, but that doesn't mean you have to always do it. It's like,
interesting you bring that up as well, though, because this is almost like an early volume, because all the stuff on the ship, then if you saw this, they'd done all the effects before they did the filming.
I didn't.
So then when they were in the ship and they were looking out at space, they were really looking out at what we would see in the finished film work. So it was almost a pre-volume that they filmed this in.
That's really amazing. Yeah. And I love that. The volume should be used on countless things. I just don't think it should be used on everything. And I think the example I was going to give is like Andor. There's so many scenes there where you need that depth that's really there, especially in the heist arc when they're kind of in the Highlands and stuff. Like, you need that in certain films. And when they're walking around Iceland, you get the depth It would have been quite easy to just make an ice planet in the volume, but I think the geography of it and the imperfections of the landscape and things like that, and the inconsistencies that don't necessarily come with a computer generated thing, I think is really important. But again, it's like most things, like with the AI thing, with practical effects and physical effects, I think you need a melding of both. I think everything, you need both of everything, really. There's very few things in this world. I'm politically left leaning. We need people on the right. We can't all be on the left. You know, it's all this kind of stuff. Everything needs to kind of equilibrium and balance itself out. It's the duality and the parallels that sort of coalesce into a balance. So I think that does work. I do have a note about Tom's madness matches Man's madness. So when you're getting the scenes of Tom going mad and Murph like shaking him out of it and being like, your kids are getting really ill, we need to save them, and him being like, no, I'm just going to stay here and let us all die because he's gone mad. You see that at the same time where Man is like trying to kill everyone, and it's that kind of the survival instinct gone awry in the wrong way. And I think that's again a theme in this film, which Michael Caine kind of weirdly does as well, where it's kind of like the desire for survival. If it's one's individual survival, it can override the pack, the tribe, the species survival, and that's when it can be toxic. And it's again of trying to be dreamers, not just people on the ground. Don't just focus on everything in your immediate circle. Try and focus on the greater world. And that's what I suspect Nolan also thinks in a lot of ways, because obviously this film is very heavy-handed with climate change stuff, which I agree with. You know, climate change is a problem and it continues to be one. But I think that's his kind of a little message there as well, which you spoke about at the start, which is how to teach kids about climate change. Well, this shit could happen. So
yeah, I love that bit at the start as well when Coop's at the school and the teacher says, "Oh, we've got the new science books which tells everybody how the moon landings were faked," and I love his reaction to that. And again, Nolan's little pushback against fake truth and fake news and that kind of stuff as well. Probably, I really like that idea. Yeah, I mean, we could keep waxing lyrical. There's so many other things to talk about. You know, the building of the farmhouse and they planted that whole crop field for real. And then sold off all the corn, so they made all their money back and things like that. There's so many like fun little stories, I think, that we could keep delving into for another couple of hours. But we are in danger of going on, as you said, right at the start of this, longer than the film itself, which is a long film.
Yeah, I think I've tackled pretty much everything and beyond that I wanted to say. I know there's a couple of things you want to highlight of people, what they had to say about the film. I'm still more than happy to listen to that. I don't know if you want to do that first or you want me to give my rating, which is going to be no surprise.
First. Yeah, we'll get you to really wow us with what you think of this film afterwards. There is a prequel comic, but I couldn't find it anywhere to read. It's called Absolute Zero, and it's set on Planet Man, and it's all about the Matt Damon Man character there. But it was written by Chris Nolan, so I'm going to keep trying to search it out. But I've looked around and even like going on eBay and trying to find, I think it's just an issue. So it's quite hard to source. So I'm going to be looking around for that. Spider Dan, when you listen to this, and you will find it because that is what you do. Thanks for sending me the link.
Yeah, send one to me as well, please.
Yeah. So yeah, no green lights, unfortunately. But I have this book, which is really cool, which is called Science-ish. And it's written by Rick Edwards and Dr. Michael Brooks. So Rick Edwards is a radio and TV personality, but Michael Brooks is a proper doctor. And they had a podcast for a while called This. And they look at all the kind of science behind movies. And they do it in kind of with a humorous bent to it. Think, Tar Sector 70, maybe. So yeah, I thought you might enjoy a little bit of this.
Please.
So I don't know who the voices are. I'm not sure who writes what bits, but this is what it says in the book. In the movie, Matty Mac, as we believe he likes to be known, crosses the event horizon of the black hole. Once past this point of no return, he has no way of ever getting out again. In theory. But somehow, no spoilers, in practice he does. I mean, full spoilers. We're not going to criticise the evasion of natural consequences unduly, because it came from the godlike mind of Kip Thorne, and who are we, frankly, to question his decision. However, it's a far cry from what we think will happen. Let's start as we approach the event horizon. No, on second thoughts, not we. We'll watch from a safe distance. You're going in, feet first, because we want it to be the most fun possible. And then they go on to talk about, as you brought up, actually, I love that you know this idea, spaghettification.
Yeah, it's not a term I made up. It's a legit scientific term for it.
Ahead of you is a glorious blackness, the most complete dark you've ever seen. By the time you approach the event horizon, your feet, which are approximately 2 meters closer to the singularity at the heart of the black hole, are experiencing a much stronger gravitational pull than your head. And so you are being stretched by what is known as tidal forces. Physicists, the fun ones at least, call it spaghettification. You're being spaghettified, made long and thin by a black hole. So yeah, I thought, I love that you said that. It's really interesting. And they talk about the real science behind it, but they try and do it in a bit of a fun way. They go on to talk about the fact that actually, probably by the time your head gets there, it's popped off because of how far you've been stretched and all this kind of mad stuff. But, yeah, I really like engaging. I said it before, like, I like engaging with this stuff without fully understanding it. There's a writer called Carlo Rovelli, who's done a book called 7 Brief Lessons on Physics, and he's done ones on time and gravity as well. I have read and listened to them at least a couple of times each because I keep going back, because I keep feeling like I kind of get in it, but I want to go back to it. And this book's a bit like that. Like, they go to some in-depth stuff where I'm kind of getting it, but I'm going to have to let that stew in the back of my head for a while and then come back and revisit it.
That's me in a nutshell. I mean, I can sometimes come across as quite well-read or quite intelligent, but the reality is I have such an erratic interest in so many different things, and I go down little rabbit holes of certain things, and then I'll remember bits and pieces. So maybe it's why Genuine Chit Chat is quite good, because I can talk to almost anyone about almost anything they're passionate about, because I've got an approximate knowledge of most things. I'm not an expert on really anything, apart from maybe Star Wars. But outside of that, I'm not an expert on anything. But I've got random little terms and bits and pieces I remember from random rabbit holes of physics I've gone down, and how time works, and how the tides are connected to the moon, and how that kind of loosely works, and all these weird little bits and pieces I've kind of got I've got like a post-it notes worth of information on most subjects. But as soon as you try and ask me in depth about what are the specific terms or what are the dates this happened, it's like, hey, I know the Night of the Long Knives happened. I know what Hitler did in his rise to power. I couldn't tell you the dates or who he killed, but I vaguely know it happened. So it's just, that's historical things. That's what I'm like as well. And sciencey things. I can normally, with layman's logic, get through scientific conversations about stuff. But when you want me to explain what quantum mechanics are, I couldn't. I got no. I vaguely understand it, as in a degree of, it's really tiny stuff. That's about as far as it could go.
It doesn't match the big stuff, which is what's so fascinating.
Yeah,
so general relativity and quantum mechanics, they don't work together, but they do because the universe works. So we haven't figured that out yet. Yeah, so fascinating, isn't it?
It's crazy.
Just for the record, he wouldn't like to be called Matty Mac, by the way. He hates being called Matt, which I bet those bastards know, which is why they put it in print.
Yeah, being a nice sarcastic about that guy would be. I do imagine with McConaughey that he would. I know everyone says it and it's all that, but like, wouldn't it be so cool just to get like a beer with him? I think you need more time than that. I think it'd be better to be like a barbecue and have other people around and just have a conversation or two. But I think he's the kind of famous person that you'd want to have tangentially in your life. You want him to like marry a relative of yours, so you got to see him like once or twice a year and have the occasional conversation with him at a family gathering with a beer. Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously you'd want him to be best friends with him because he seems really cool, but like, I don't think a one-off interaction with him, it would be so overwhelming. If you're like, do you want to meet McConaughey for 10 minutes? I'd be like, well, obviously I'll say yes. But what the hell? Where would you even start? What would I say if I had 10 minutes with McConaughey that a million people haven't already asked him, who are interviewers and other stuff? But having like a tangential connection to him, he just seems like such a genuine person. And that I respect that.
So what you're saying is you want to be Planet Mike orbiting his black hole?
That sounds a lot different than I think you intended.
No, that sounded exactly right.
Okay. Maybe not that much. I am a married man, so I think so is he, so maybe not. Yeah. Oh, brilliant.
All right, a couple of letterboxd and then I'll get you.
Let's do it. Love to hear what people think.
Okay, Kylo says, I thought you'd like this one. Every time I rewatch this, I'm more amazed by it. What a masterpiece. Thought-provoking, so much emotional depth, visually stunning. The performances are incredible. McConaughey, Hathaway, Chastain. Jessica Chastain really blew me away in this. A truly moving performance by all three of them. So much greatness to behold in this movie.
Agreed. I forgot to mention Jessica Chastain. I know I mentioned the person who plays Merv, but I forgot it was her. For some reason, I thought it was Bryce Dallas Howard before I watched it this time, but they
get confused for each other quite a lot, I think.
Yeah,
I mean, in
but she
general,
was
like when in
fantastic.
public and people would be like, they run up to her going like, "I loved you in," and it's
Yeah, I loved you in Jurassic World. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're both incredible actors, both Bryce and Jessica Chastain. But yeah, she was a real. I forgot how good she was in this actually. So yeah, thumbs up.
Johnny Garfield says, "For me, this is Nolan's second best movie, right behind Inception, but it's a very close second. This movie is something that everyone must see at least once. It has everything. You'll be on an emotional roller coaster throughout the film, from biting your nails to crying. It is by far the best space movie ever made. This is one of McConaughey's best, if not his best. An absolute must-watch."
Yeah, I agree with all that, except I'd swap Inception for Dark Knight. I do adore Memento, but I think it's a very much... Memento is definitely an indie film with one through-line concept. This is an epic. I do want to rewatch Inception at some point. It's just one of those films where I was like, I've seen it. I want to rewatch it to prove I like it more than I thought I did. I didn't hate it. I just watched it and that was pretty good. But I didn't fall over it. But I guess maybe I was too young. But no.
I think it happens a lot, doesn't it? That sometimes, depending on when you see it and how big the hype is, it can be really hard for a film to live up to your expectations, can't it? I wonder if, I don't know your circumstances of seeing it, but maybe that was something behind it.
Well, it was years ago. I mean, what was it, 2010, I think? So I was 16, right? And like the amount of films one sees when they're 16, especially when they're a film buff and they're getting into movies and you just don't get it. And you watch a movie and you go, that wasn't good, that sucked. And then you watch it as an adult, you're like, oh my God. Well, I completely missed the point. American Psycho was one of them. I watched that when I was 16. I was like, hell was that? And I watched it a few years ago. I was like, that was amazing. It's one of the funniest films I've seen in a long time. So yeah, I imagine I'd have, not the humor side, I imagine there's so much to it that I would really appreciate. But all I'm just going to do is wait till someone does a podcast on it and then I'll have an excuse to watch it. So when you're on Back to Filmography season 5 and you're doing one of the people, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who's in it, and there we go.
All right, as you said, we always need the other side, so let's go to the other side of the event horizon. Will Menaker says, "There are things I do like about this movie, namely Bill Irwin as TARS and the whole design of the TARS robot. But this is my least favourite Nolan movie. McConaughey's character is just too corny. Way too much shit going on back on Planet Dust Bowl. The whole Matt Damon part, and the secret ingredient is love? This thing is just not clicking for me. Plus, how are you going to name your daughter Murph?"
I understand that. To be fair, Nolan doesn't really, apart from Tenet maybe, which I haven't seen, I don't think Nolan really has a bad movie.
No.
Although, is Insomnia, have you seen that with Robin Williams?
It's really good, yeah.
Oh, okay. And Al Pacino, I think. I've not seen it.
Straightforward than this and his later back catalogue. But yeah, a very good movie.
Yeah, I understand why people may not like this. It's long, high concept, and if you're not on board and you're like 3 hours, Christ. If you feel like you have to watch this as opposed to you want to, I feel like it could drag. But I don't agree with the McConaughey thing. Obviously, I think he's phenomenal in this. Planet Dirt, I think, is important, but I can understand there are definitely valid criticisms to this film. I just think that this is one of those films, which this is going to make you sound like a prick, where there are certain films which you can say you don't like, but there's other films which are kind of undeniably good in a way. And there's some films you watch and you go, that was a brilliant movie, wasn't for me. And I think that's what this film is. It's undeniable in its craft, but if it wasn't your jam, that's perfectly fine. That's kind of how I sit with this one.
Yeah. I'm glad he called out Bill Irwin playing TARS as well, because, I mean, knowing there's a person behind that performance, knowing that is mostly somebody manually controlling that is a really cool idea too. Obviously, there is CGI, there is augmentation, like obviously the running scene on Planet Miller has lots of visual effects on top of the special effects, but knowing there's somebody behind that is a really cool concept. And seeing him moving all the different limbs and stuff, like a big puppeteer.
I forgot about that. I mean, it is like, again, linking back to Alan Tudyk, when he did K2SO, he was on set wearing, grey stuff and bubbles to be able to do that. And he does the whole voice. So he is doing a full-on performance in that movie. He's not just doing voice acting, which voice acting is still a super important and hard thing to do, but I think is extra when even like Benedict Cumberbatch being Smaug in The Hobbit and do all the weird dragon movements. Like it's impressive when people want to go that extra mile, and I think it normally pays off. Yeah, absolutely. Go on, mate. Shock us. Classic worth catching or completist only? Imagine if I said completist only. Could you? That would be the biggest heel turn ever.
2 hours, 15 minutes later.
Of gushing. But you basically argue this is nearly a perfect movie, and then going, actually, no. No, it's complete. I think there's been a lot of movies in your series here, which...
Classic, you mean, right? Not completist.
Sorry, yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry, it's classic, guys. It's classic. This is one that you have to watch to understand McConaughey. This is the peak. Because I think it's undeniable. Whether you like this movie or not, his performance is undeniable and is an important cornerstone of his career, which I think, as you said, this is of the end of a kind of run of top tier, and I don't think he's hit his stride again on this. I have a feeling within the next 10 years, there's going to be a movie that's going to come out, which is going to be him starring, and he's going to be top tier.
One is supposed to be already an Oscar frontrunner for next year.
Okay, well, and
no,
what's that?
Not the Lost Bus. I can never remember the name of it. It's got some weird name. It's called like the something of Evelyn or right. Yeah. Everyone's already talking about that. It's just been bought, I think, now and it's got distribution. But people are already saying like, "Whoa, this is him doing this shit again 10 years later." Yeah,
I was going to say 10, 12 years after. Yeah. So yeah. But I think, this is undeniably a classic. You have to watch this film to get McConaughey. Whether or not you're a fan of Interstellar doesn't matter, because it's his performance. It would be hard to find a collection of, it'd be hard to watch a movie that has a better showcase of someone's acting talent than this, in my opinion.
Okay. So, a classic.
And you're the same, I assume.
I do, yeah. I think, I mean, fuck, what a run I've been on for the last few films, and obviously True Detective that I've been watching. So, yeah, it's going to be a bit of a come down again, sadly. But
we got Dark Tower soon, haven't you?
Yeah. There's not going to be good points within that, and I'm always going to be positive about his performance and what he's bringing to it. But I mean, we've discussed it a couple of times already. This little run he's been on here has been really quite something, and this is what a way to finish it off. Absolutely. Yeah.
How many more films you got to go?
I have 10? Got a little bit more. So this is number 39. Well, this is film 38, but episode number 39 because I did True Detective.
Yeah.
And I've got to get up to episode 53. So 52 movies so far, including The Lost Bus, which I'm yet to see because I'm saving it. Yeah, the next one I've just looked it up is called The Rivals of Amnesia King. So it's got no release date yet, but people are talking about that being, something really quite special again.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, yeah, I mean, Cuba the Two String, you're probably not going to feel about it the same way as Interstellar, but it is, at very least, it's an enjoyable watch. Even if it doesn't land for you like it does for me, it's an enjoyable film. Yeah. So you've got at least that. Then again, I don't think Dark Tower is horrendous. I just don't think it's great. It's a film. But the rest of his movies after this, I don't think I could even think. Oh, well, The Gentleman. I mean, and he's amazing in that. So you've got, I think you've got at least 2 really good movies and one that's all right. But I don't know any of his other movies after this.
No.
Deadpool 3, I suppose. You choose Deadpool 3. And it's got I've not seen Sing. Apparently, they're both really good.
They're good fun, yeah.
So actually, although you've not got the peak, I mean, 2 Sing movies that are fun, fairly shallow but fun. You've got Deadpool 3, which is obviously a really good movie, even though he's barely in it. You've got Dark Tower that's all right, and then you've got Kubo and Gentleman that are brilliant. So actually, although you're not in the quite peak, you've got at least half of them are going to be a good watch.
There's plenty to look forward to still, yeah. So I've got about a dozen movies left to go, with at least half of those being well worth my time, it sounds like.
Amazing. And then, before the end of 2026, you'll have to have announced what your next...
Yes, October is when we'll be finished. Ooh. So
I won't be mean and ask you what that is, if you've even figured it out yet, because I know that last time you're like, I figured it out, and then suddenly McConaughey's autobiography came out, and you're like, psych.
No, I generally haven't. I keep talking about the idea that I might put a few names out there and let people tell me who they would prefer to see. I think I might approach it that way this time.
Sure, well, I'm happy for. I think almost all your films, the next ones until the end, have all been. Taken, haven't they? Like you've got people allocated to all the next films in the reconnaissance, right? You don't have to tell me who, but I didn't know if there's any gaps.
No, other than the one that nobody wants, which is called The Beach Bum.
How long have you got till that?
That would be released in July, end of July. So it's about 8 movies away.
If you want to put me down for that, you can. I don't know anything about it, so it could be
the one that nobody wants. All I'll say is it's written and directed by Harmony Korine. I don't know if you know who that is.
Nope.
Okay, then I'll just leave it there. Thank you for the
There you go. Yeah, I'll do Beach Bum. I mean, I like bums, so especially McConaughey's. So hopefully it'll just be his butt. I'm obviously being glib. I don't know anything about it. I won't even look up anything about it. I'll just
go on, do it. That'll be fun.
I'll go in blind. I don't know who the director is. I don't know anything about. I don't even know if McConaughey's in it much. I assume at this point in his career he probably is. Yeah, but I know nothing, so it'll be good.
I'm pretty sure Woody's in it as well. Him and Woody are back together in this.
Cool. Amazing. So you're saying it's going to be as good as True Detective season 1. So
that is what I said. Yes, everyone that is my have not seen it yet review of the Beach Bum.
Oh, fantastic! Amazing. Well, obviously, thank you for having me on as always. Is this the longest episode so far?
Quite possibly. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Of all time of anything that I've done, but I think you and I tend to go a little bit long, but that's all right because we always have fun.
It's the first podcast I've done in 5 months. So it was to be expected, I think.
5 months worth of talking. But as we're talking about that, like, we don't know exactly when, but we know the comeback is on. Anything you want to talk about at this point, just to let people know?
Yeah, just if you follow me, if you're on social media and stuff, follow me at Genuine Chit Chat, and you'll see mainly on my stories, and occasionally in posts, you'll see cute photos of my baby, Melody, who's currently 4 months old, or will be by the time this comes out. Or actually, I think she was 4 months yesterday, thinking about it. So she...
baby brain. We all have it at this point of life.
Yes, yeah. Sleep deprivation and take it every day as it comes. But no, if you want to see some stuff of my baby and also my dog, then you get to see them on there. Clips for Genuine Chit Chat are on TikTok a lot. And on YouTube as well, Genuine Chit Chat, or if you're into Star Wars stuff, Star Wars Chit Chat. Things are going to be trickling out on the YouTube channels of Genuine Chit Chat and Star Wars Chit Chat. Some video versions of stuff that's come out, which the audio version is already out on the podcast feeds. And over the coming months, audio episodes I recorded before Melody was born are going to be out, and I have a lot of fun projects for 2026. But yeah, there's loads of clips all over TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Just check Star Wars Chit Chat or Genuine Chit Chat for all those things. A lot of fun stuff, even if you don't want to commit to like a full hour or 2 hour long podcast on there. So and check out all the other stuff, because Jack and I have done pods on Genuine Chit Chat. Jack's been on when we spoke about Andor in the past and other Star Warsy things, and I've been on Back to Filmography, obviously. I was on the Statham ones. Was it Romeo and Juliet? We did Collateral, which we did. So it's Jason Statham's only voice acting role. His one line in Collateral that may or may not be his character from The Mechanic. Transporter rather. And I think there's one other. And the Meg, of course, because my wife, the Meg. And yeah, Glory Days and How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. So lots of Back to Filmography stuff that you can check out from me on this feed, or Jack somewhere on Star Wars Chit Chat or Genuine Chit Chat. But things are coming. Just follow me where you can and check out stuff where you can, and it is hugely appreciated.
Brilliant, mate. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
An epic podcast befitting this stellar movie. Much like last episode, there is so much to discuss about this stop through the reconnaissance that we probably left out as much as we spoke about. Until next time, post-Project Hail Mary. It was so good to chit-chat to Mike again, and I'm honoured to be the first show he's appeared on after his love-focused hiatus. Thanks to you two listeners for your continued engagement and participation as we journey through the reconnaissance. That was Interstellar. Next up in a fortnight, I'm going to be joined by Math to discuss Eminem's performance as Arthur Brennan and Gus Van Sant's The Sea of Trees, for those that are watching along. Until next time, be excellent to each other, and make sure you take the time to treat yourself too. I'm Jack signing off. Yippee-ki-yay, movie lovers!
You just gotta keep living, man. Livin.
Cut.